a young married man and I'm tired of my life, for lately I married an ailing young wife. She does nothing all day, only sit down and sigh, saying I wish to the Lord that I only could die. Oh doctor, dear doctor, oh doctor the young, your cod liver oil is so pure and so strong. I'm afraid of my life, I'll go down in the soil if me wife don't stop drinking your cod liver oil. Till a friend of me own came to see me one day, and he told me my wife was just pining away, but he afterward told me that she would get strong if I buy her a bottle from Dr. DeYoung. Oh doctor, oh doctor, oh Dr. DeYoung, your cod liver oil is so pure and so strong. I'm afraid of me life, I'll go down in the soil if me wife don't stop drinking your cod liver oil. So I bought her a bottle, 'twas just for to try, and the way that she scoffed it, she'd swear she was dry. I bought her another, it went just the same, till I owned she'd got cod liver oil on the brain. Oh doctor, dear doctor, oh Dr. DeYoung, your cod liver oil is so pure and so strong. I'm afraid of my life, I'll go down in the soil if me wife don't stop drinking your cod liver oil. Me house, it resembles a big doctor's shop, with bottles and bottles from bottom to top. And when in the morning the kettle does boil, well, you'd swear it was singing out cod liver oil. Oh doctor, dear Dr. DeYoung, your cod liver oil is so pure and so strong. I'm afraid of my life, I'll go down in the soil if me wife don't stop drinking your cod liver oil. Oh doctor, dear Dr. DeYoung, your cod liver oil is so pure and so strong. I'm afraid of my life, I'll go down in the soil if me wife don't stop drinking your cod liver oil. I'm afraid of my life, I'll go down in the soil if me wife don't stop drinking your cod liver oil. Next. War was over and the spirit was broken. The hills were broken as the men withdrew. We stood on the cliffs, oh, we watched the ships slowly sink into their rendezvous. They signed a treaty and our home was taken. Loved ones forsaken, they didn't give one name. How to raise a family and love the enemy. Over what went down on the plains of Abraham. Acadian driftwood, gypsy tailwind. They call my home the land of snow. Canadian cold front moving in. What a way to ride, oh, what a way to go. And some stayed on to finish what they started. They never parted, they just felt that way. Then some returned to the motherland. The high command had them walking in chains. We had kin living south of the border. They're a little older, man, they've been around. They wrote in a letter, life is a whole lot better. So pack up your things, children, come on down. Acadian driftwood, gypsy tailwind. They call my home the land of snow. Canadian cold front moving in. What a way to ride, oh, what a way to go. 15 under zero when the day became a threat. My clothes were wet and I was drenched to the bone. Been out ice fishing, too much repetition makes a man want to leave the only home he has known. Sailed up on the docks, heading for St. Pierre. Nothing to declare, all we had was gone. Broke down along the coast, yeah. What hurt the most was the people that said we better keep moving on. Acadian driftwood, gypsy tailwind. They call my home the land of snow. Canadian cold front moving in. What a way to ride, oh, what a way to go. Everlasting summer filled with ill content. This government had us walking in chains. This ain't my turf, oh, this ain't the season. Can't find the worked up in the sugar fields down in New Orleans. They were evergreen up on the toe. You could call it a no man, point you where you're going. So my compass north, I got Acadian driftwood, gypsy tailwind. They call my home land of snow. Canadian cold front moving in. What a way to ride, oh, what a way to go. fade to Acadia, je demande paix, la neige à Galicia, et de larmes au soleil, je rive Acadia. Tiddle-um, 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 je rive Acadia. Tiddle-um, 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 je rive Acadia. Tiddle-um, 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 je rive Acadia. Tiddle-um, tiddle-um, tiddle-um. I give thee all I can, no more, though poor the offering be. My heart and lute are all the store that I can give to thee. A lute whose gentle song reveals the soul of love full well, and bound for a heart that feels much more than lute can tell. Though love and song may fail, alas, to keep life's clouds away, at least to make the rider pass or gild every face stay. And even if care at moments flings a discord o'er life's happy strain, oh, let love but gently touch the strings, 'twill all be sweet again. Oh, let love but gently touch the strings, 'twill all be sweet again. Let love but gently touch the strings, 'twill all be sweet again. Strings are ST rings. So what might that mean? Everything is encoded like that. Anyway, greetings. How you doing? Good to see or not see you, as the case may be. Back for more. So swiftly after the last hangout, that's fine. This is just mostly for the purposes of working our way through Pinocchio. Maybe another 6, 7, or 8 chapters tonight, something like that. Probably enough for a couple of hours. I'm going to keep it short enough. Try not to get diverted. A few other things to talk about. Pretty big breakthrough in terms of my own thinking to report as well, so I can give you a sort of a lowdown on that. But yeah, I'd just like to welcome everybody who may be listening, whoever you are. I hope you're making progress and dealing adequately with life, whatever you want to call all of this. Let me just go through the songs. I was only going to do 2, but I do the second. My voice is a bit hoarse as well. Nothing at all got to do with the joints I'm smoking. Nothing to do with that whatsoever. Maybe a tiny bit. But I was only just going to sing 2, but I said, fuck it, I fancied singing the song myself anyway, which was the second song that I threw in. Funny old song to open, cod liver oil. I won't go through the lyrics. They're all there. And it's just a sort of a piss take song. And I guess people, especially in Ireland anyway, maybe many different fronts, be able to appreciate their youth and how cod liver oil was the cure-all. It's nothing wrong with you. You just go into your mother and, or you know, the prognosis and prescription was cod liver oil, the cure-all. So it's forcing it down your throat. So I can certainly relate to that song as a youngster. The other thing that sticks out as a youngster, which tasted foul, was milk of magnesia. So there's probably inherent good in all of these things. And these things are probably still going. But certainly here in Ireland anyway, they were rammed down our throats at every opportunity as children, cod liver oil especially. So I think the song is sort of a little bit of a piss take at that, a sort of factoid regarding life in Ireland back in whenever 80s, 70s, 80s, 1970s, 80s, that is. Whatever that means. 19, from where, when you're counting from, you always have to have a start to count from, don't you? So if we don't know what we're counting, Jesus never existed as a man, so therefore, what's the purpose? There's something else going on. We're counting from a date of different significance. So anyway, yeah, cod liver oil. It's I think, I don't know where it is. I don't even think it says who wrote it. It just says the Dubliners here. So maybe the Dubliners wrote it. Yeah, or maybe it's a traditional Irish song. It just occurred to me to sing because I used to sing it with a friend of mine, Mark Dillon. I haven't seen Mark in years now at this stage. When we were sort of university age, picked up the guitars and started playing together here and there at parties or busking or whatever, you know. So that was one of the old reliables that you'd lash out. Yeah, that was called Cod Liver Oil. If you're interested, just type it in the Dubliners to YouTube and you'll get a good version of it. Funny old song. So the second one, yeah, which is the one I just sang for the heck of it, by the band called Acadian Driftwood. Very, very encoded song. And I've talked about this many times before. Yeah, there's a different story being told us regarding our true history, right? A true story. The true construct that we're in, and it's told via many fronts, but certainly Acadian Driftwood is loaded with clues for us in the very title itself. Set my compass north, I got winter in my blood, pointing you to the north center, where our home is, if you will, or the core is. But yeah, Acadian Driftwood, Acadia is, you know, paradise, I guess. It's also a town in Canada. But it's, you know, other names for encoded, other names for sort of paradise and paradise lost, if you will, Shangri-La, and yeah, set my compass north. I got winter in my blood. Acadian Driftwood to begin with. Giant trees. You know, what is wood? What is wood if trees are not trees? What are real trees? Why do we put up a tree? Why do we cut down a tree first of all and put it up at Christmas time? You know. All of these questions need to be looked at, or so need to be asked first of all. And all of these habits of a lifetime, if you will, these customs that were ingrained into and trained into and entrenched within, at their core have a truth to them. Christmas isn't all about materialism, although knowledge of the material aspect of things is prominent, you know, prominent within the telling, if you will, of what Christmas is all about. But yeah, there's also an opposing aspect, an opposing side. And these are the things now we need to consider anew as, what do you call them? Flat earthers. Stupid to label ourselves. I never call myself, I'm a flat earther as opposed to a globe earther. But beyond that, I mean, I don't like these sort of type of labels. And earth is and it isn't flat. It depends on what you mean by earth. Another question. If you took a snow globe, for instance, and someone asked you to describe the snow globe, and you just said it was the base of it, you know, on the interior, the base, and you left out, you know, the boundary, the barrier, you left out the constituency of the beyond, you know. Well, you're not describing the snow globe, or you're not describing Earth, you know, by just saying that the ground is flat beneath it. You know, that's not a good picture. That's only a quarter of the picture. So that's Acadian Driftwood by the band. They're connected with big time, connected with Bob Dylan as well, and they have many encoded songs, all telling fundamentally the same stories. This is what I'm learning more and more. And well, as I only learned yesterday, and it just confirmed what I was thinking anyway, everything is there. Everything is a clue for us. It's waiting for us to have the right eyes to see it. And most especially, and I noticed this before about the setup of the YouTube page or the Google Hangout page, you know, with the thumbs up, the bell notifications, all of these things were designed with certain greater themes in mind. So they're hints for us. The way I look at the thumb up is when you thumb up, when you take the word thumb and you turn it on its head, turn it up or you turn it down. In other words, you read it from the back instead of from the front. Well, something very interesting sounds itself out. And as I pointed out to you many times before, on your keyboard here, again designed specifically and according to a informed fashion, let's put it like that. When you look at your keyboard, the H is in the very center, with the G next to it, the H is in the very center, and on the X, right, on both the diagonals you have THUMB, thumb, right? Now, according to the nonsense story of evolution, what allowed us to advance from one certain previous or prior state, less advanced state, to a more advanced state, opposable thumbs, you know. So the thumb, very significant in terms of what it represents, and I don't want to dwell back on stuff I already talked about ages ago, but Arthur Dent, the main character from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, HHGG it's known as, there's a sort of conflict between HH and GG. Once we understand what the letters represent, we can understand why there is this relation between them, first of all, but more so there is a conflict there. One is a sort of a lesser form than the other. So if we think of the G, for instance, in terms of the theta, you can easily make a H into a theta. Can you imagine in your brain how you can make a H into a theta? You have the crossbar and it just malleably move the two ends around together. So you have sort of crossbar and the theta in the center. So we can imagine G in relation to the theta. It's missing an aspect, isn't it? So this is significant in itself. But yeah, Arthur Dent, to get from place to place across the known and even the unknown universe, well, he had the electronic thumb. You know, you stick out your thumb when you're thumbing a lift when you need to go towards a destination. And the fact that thumb is written forwards on that X marks the spot on the center of millions of keyboards earthwide. Don't ask me how it works in other languages, right? Because the way I covered that is the picture is the same. All the different languages will encode clues regarding the same picture. So however to do that, it's outside my sphere of sort of knowledge. I have very limited French, basic French, and same with Irish. Even though we studied Irish for years and years, it'd be difficult. Well, I could brush up on it, but it's still difficult to have a conversation in it. So I can only speak for English anyway, and I just assume, and I know it as well. I know French is a very encoded language. There's a big connection with English and French as well. But yeah, I know it's the same thing for different languages. So the story comes first, or the picture comes first, that's to be painted. And then within the languages of the particular countries, we have the telling of the story via the structure of the letters, the placement of the letters, the arrangement of the letters together, etc. But yeah, so when we look at the center, when we look at the very center of our keyboard, H is the center, the heart center, and that becomes significant later on. The heart center. Heart is, if you think of the H, right, both sides, and you have the line across the center. But if you bring the two disparate verticals together, then what do you get? You get a cross, don't you? So you have a line down and a line in the center. Now, if you understand that we have sort of a center, we have a lower tendency, a lower aspect to us. And don't take the terms literal, a lower aspect. Lower in this terms means material, right? If we're immaterial beings at our core and we're having a material experience, then we can describe the lower aspect as the material. So yeah, the heart center then, which is the bridge between the immaterial and the material, and then we have the dome of the head, the marble arch, the top, the TT, right? The 12-12 of the clock. So yeah, you mightn't be, lots of people might be with me on that, but it's something like this that's going on. And yeah, that's what I talked about, the thumb here. So when we have the thumb up, the thumb, please thumb it up and thumb it down. Well, what you're not thinking about is maybe why these symbols were put in place in the first place. They're right before millions of people, like a keyboard is. The word is there to be recognized. Now, what might it mean? Well, thumb up or thumb down, doesn't matter which way, reverse it. So when you reverse it, do it yourself and sound it out. Remember, it's all about the sound. It's all about the frequency. We have the thought, we have the word, and we have the deed. Simple as that. You know, the thought, THOUGHT, there's the G inserted as well to thought, THOTH, and that becomes important as well. I'll talk about that in a bit. What the O might represent, and I have talked about that. Yeah, thumb backwards is B, ma, ot. Now, what does that sound like to you? Yeah, that's not coincidence. That's not coincidence. Then you revert back to where you've heard that term before, and of course, it's probably in a biblical sense, where behemoth was the first created by the Creator, the most powerful. We associate it with some wild monster, wild creature. Well, that's not the case at all. Everything's about you. This is the story of you, and behemoth is within. So that's our clue. It's a game of, it's a word puzzle. It's a game of puns, really, and it's a game of following the language as it really translates. Okay. So that's Acadian Driftwood. I leave that behind. My heart and lute then at the end. Yeah, I think I should probably stop doing songs at the start. Maybe just do one or something, just to cut it down a small bit. I spend too much time sort of talking about them at the start. And not that I have anything particular planned, but to talk about maybe a few things, but nothing organized in any sense anyway. So that's fine by me. It's like easy going, no sort of pressure in any sense. But yeah, a few interesting things happened, and I can talk about those in a while. Well, you know, only to me though. No one else on this plane, but only to me. But yeah, I'll leave the songs there behind with special emphasis on the most important song I've ever put music to, and that's My Heart and Lute. My heart. So I mentioned about the heart center, the heart, the earth, the ether, all the same thing, or it's all referring to the same thing. So once we have a greater context, we can see pretty much what that thing is, and then everything sort of slots into place for me anyway. Again, that's all I'm speaking about. And you know, the Aristarchus, everything's about Aristarchus. So if it's the answer, now come the questions, because if you have the answer but you don't have the questions, well, the answer is no good. So anyway. Yeah, so I'll leave that song behind. So just again, the first one, Cod Liver Oil by the Dubliners. Second one is Acadian Driftwood by the band. And the third one was My Heart and Lute, which is a poem that I put the music to myself. And just to reiterate, my heart is an arm of earth, and my lute, a French word, or sorry, a French word when inverted, when you read it from the back, is itol. Itol is star. So it's my heart, my earth, and star. And well, need I say more? Our I star? Because I don't feel like I is a star. Anyway, yeah, just what I'll do tonight is I go into chat shortly, say hello, and continue on with Pinocchio. We got to chapter 10 the last time. I'm not sort of thinking too hard about anything. I'm just, I can see there's a great significance in it. And you know, anything that occurs as I'm making my way through the first time, I would certainly pass the remark pretty briefly. Generally, I'll make our way through the text itself. As is usual, isn't it, with reading a book? Don't be jumping in too deep. with your analysis before you have the book fucking read it all. So that's to the forefront of my mind. But as I said before, I was entering it, I noticed a special significance to it. So everything that I have sort of pieced together in terms of my own greater picture of what's going on, I'll be looking with that bias, if you will, I mean, at that story. And I'm happy enough to do that. Some might say, well, it's your own bias, and that's, you know, sort of the road to failure, the road to misdiagnosis, if you will. Well, we all carry this bias with us, and when you pick up on an idea and it has some sort of legs, well, what else are you going to do but run with it, right? So that's where I'm coming from on this. So let's leave the songs behind. I'm going to play just one more before we finish. And yeah, I'll go through a couple of things. So let me first of all just go into chat. What is it, Tuesday, is it? Wednesday. Quite Wednesday night, as always. What is it? Okay, that picture is coming very clear. I don't like when it comes too clear. Or it'd be nice and blurry to have people think I'm good looking and young. Okay, how you doing? Irving, how you doing? Elvis died on the toilet. Constipation. Well, there's more. Okay, well, Elvis was the king, right? And the toilet, the slang for the toilet is the throne. Throne. So little joke in there. But Elvis, I've pointed this out, Irving, about Elvis and Alice in the initial drawings, representations. Very, very similar look here. All of these personalities are crafted. And I can say this with certainty as well. I'm pretty sure it's the case. I've literally communicated with Elvis. Not that it matters much, or it doesn't weigh on me, but I'm pretty sure I have. There was a certain thread set up over in Above Top Secret about this guy John Cotner and whether or not he was Elvis. And for me, it goes beyond doubt that it was Elvis. You know what I mean? But the man himself contributed to the thread. And by the end of it, you're talking about it going on for 2 or 3 weeks. Most of the stragglers had left, but there was still people who had stuck with it, and there was still a conversation 120 pages in. It was pretty much accepted all around that the man was John Cotner. First of all, you have evidence via YouTube here and via other outlets regarding John Cotner and his many, many different similarities to the man himself who played Elvis. Remember, that was just a character as well. Elvis, an album of lives. Alice lives. Yeah, by the end of the thread, it was generally accepted. He admitted it as well. And I was just texting him. He replied specifically to me. I said my mother was a big fan. I don't know. Throw some knickers her way or something like that. But something like that. But yeah, Elvis is John Cotner. So we needn't get involved with the sort of the drama itself. You know, it's like looking at a Shakespeare play and getting wrapped up in the characters of the characters, playing the characters, as opposed to paying heed to the message or the story being told through the characters. So this is the way it is with all of these characters, from the very most famous, JFK, Elvis, Michael Jackson, you know, think about it, down to, you know, the mundane, the people, well, relatively mundane, the newscasters, whoever, the crisis actors. You know, it's characters playing a role towards some sort of a greater plan, if not their own, someone else's. And they are privy, for the most part, to a secret. Absolutely certain of that. Like all of the bowler antagonists who act in unison, they're all privy to a greater cause. You can't have a cohesion within a big, massive band of liars if the ultimate goal is against your fellow man. You can't do it. You can't do it, no matter how much bribery or threats are in place. No, I think there's a different story here, a different picture, and ultimately it involves the mass awakening of all of us. First of all, on an individual level, and then beyond that. That's the way I see it. I've certainly woken up on an individual level. For many, and I always thought I was awake. Relatively, I was to other people, I suppose, but relative to myself, back then and now, whenever then is. Sleeping Hound. No clue. Absolutely no clue. Everything you held to be true was a fantasy, chimera. You know, there's no reality to it. So yeah, it certainly has been an awakening, and pretty much everything has been flipped on its head. And needs must. And I'm thinking these days that this is a challenge we set ourselves. So imagine you approach the world, and especially with our sort of curious eyes and curious minds, imagine you approach the earth here as an experience or a challenge. You actually set yourself in your greater form. It would change things up a bit. And literally, in terms of just my own realization in terms of words, and it's regarding the word Elohim. And when it sort of clicked, I said, fucking hell. Now I see why it's everywhere. And that was only a fresh thought yesterday, so I'll definitely be advancing on that. But yeah, you'll definitely broach this whole experience in a different way, won't you? Or approach it in a different way. That you imagine you set yourself this challenge, you know, and the time is now. So I literally think it's something like that going on. There are far too many clues being left and to be found left, right, and center. That it becomes impossible, first of all, that all the clues are unconnected, and then it becomes impossible that there isn't some greater endeavor behind all of it. Now, that's another murky area. Anything could be possible, but this is where faith in oneself comes in as well, I suppose. You know, the worst anyone can do to you is kill you, isn't it? Take your life. But as long as you are happy within your own skin, within your own soul, I suppose, that's nothing, you know. Relatively, of course, it's everything in another sense, but you know, in a greater sense, that's nothing. But all of this stuff is happening at this time. I have no doubt it is all proceeding according to clockwork, predestined, pre-designed plan. And Irving in the chat here, an expert, I would suppose, on Back to the Future, and all of the symbolism, all of the predictive programming, all of the clues inserted within the movie series Back to the Future. And, you know, you'll be quick to agree with me, Irving, a story is being told, and for those with eyes to see, it manifests. But of course, we only have our own eyes, and we can only see through our own eyes. So every man's story is different. But that these things are certainly inserted within all of these information bundles that we receive regarding news or history or events elsewhere. Yeah, it goes beyond any shadow of a doubt. So we've got to figure out what the purpose is. But first of all, if you're so inclined, you can start to try and decode and try to read what might be going on. And everything that I'm finding anyway is that there's two stories being told consistently. And that is the external story, the Earth, its form, why it's in its current form, what are its previous forms, and that's the external. And then there's the internal. It's the story of us ourselves, the experience, or the human, right? Human, the color of man. Yeah, that's the other story. And it's characters like the Buddha or Jesus or, you know, these type of fictional craftings that are there to put in place to help us along. And hopefully, well, some it's more overt than others, but hopefully with due consideration, we can come to realize that the story is not an external story, it is our own internal story. So the Buddha, the Jesus is within. Don't fuck with the Jesus, you know. So this is it. We have the external story, the secondary story as to the nature of our home, which is where we live. And then we have the primary story, which is our own story, the story of us. And where does Elohim come in? I'll just put that word in chat and see if anyone makes something of it. And I will let you briefly know what I make of it. And we all know about the Elohim. It's purposely left ambiguous in the Bible as to, was it a plural God, or was it gods who created the earth? I think that's part of Genesis 2. Maybe it's Genesis 1. I'm not sure. Actually, that'd be interesting. I'd look at that to see if it was the original because as far as I'm concerned, when we're reading Genesis 1 and then Genesis 2, already it's telling you within the name it's a different story. So a new beginning and a new beginning. So yeah, I hold it there's a different God versus Lord God character, and it's a different story being told between the two. One is a later version of the other, and I hold really in my heart that we're all still in Genesis 1. And yeah, here we are, ventured into the world of the vision, and the world where everything is flipped upside down in Genesis 2. Now that the globe Earth has been destroyed, how can you destroy something that never existed? Well, now we can examine the lies told and see what we can garner from them. Best way to hide the truth is flip it 180 degrees. You can't go any further in terms of an opposite direction, 180 degrees. So yeah, we'll take the lie, we'll flip it, and we'll see what we'll get. See how it fits into our picture of everything. So yeah, sorry. No, it's interesting, Chris, that you mentioned that word below here, below, because Elohim, right? So break it, excellent, below him. But well, I won't. I'll leave it there. I'll leave it just stew there for another few minutes. I'll just say hello to everyone. Chris Hayes, how you doing? Start from the bottom of Tom Corner. How you doing, Tom? Good to see you, man. Dominic Sobolowski, how you doing, Dominic? Dominic, good to see you, Dominic. Hope everything is well. Physics Rules Forever, how you doing? I have something to say about just Dominic there. I have something to say about the dodo tonight, and I'll just mention that briefly before I go on to Pinocchio. But it was very interesting. It was just like I mean, I think if you ask for signs, you will get. I know if you ask for signs, you will get them. The problem is that when you do get a sign, what the fuck do you do with it? So I've definitely been getting lots of signs over the years, and I take it in terms of what I found yesterday was definitely a big sign, because there's always a big playing on my mind. So I'll go speak about that for a few minutes, and it's just Brandy here next to me. I'll speak about that for a few minutes. I'll show you. Oh, shit, look at him, happy as Larry. Yeah, shut up. Excuse me. Right. Yeah, but if you ask for something, you get them. But what do you do with them when you? No, sit down now, Brand. Come on, I wasn't calling you. That was a joke. Come on, sit down. Come on, lie down. I'll put you down on the ground now. I'm telling you. You better appreciate what you have. I'll fuck you off there onto the ground. I'm kidding now. Come on, nothing but love for that dog. We have to be dramatic sometimes. Like, he has no clue what to make of me. He really doesn't. Just none. He just, he doesn't know what's going to happen from next to next, next minute, 1 minute to next. Just in terms of teasing, like psychological. If he walks over that way, I look him in the eye and I look at his bowl, and he's going, "Hang on, I was just going to sit down there. Now you're looking at my bowl. What the fuck do you want in my bowl?" And the minute then I stretch out my hand like that, he's going, "Rah!" So I'm going, fuck it. I didn't want anything there. I wanted the water. But yeah. Anyway, yeah, I definitely took this as a sign. So I'll show you that in a few minutes. And I'll also talk about things. It won't make any sense to anybody, but we talked about this back in the heart of the dodo days, when I was sort of really into it. And that's probably gone back a year and a half at this stage, I'm thinking. Maybe not as much. But yeah. Just bring up something else in relation to the little sign, if you will, I got. So yeah, sorry, let me just go. Anyone needs a wrench as well? If you want one. Otherwise, everything seems to be running fine, doesn't it? If it isn't, let me know. If it gets a bit unbearable and you fancy wielding it, I don't mind that. But the reason I took them away is because someone told me that if you have a wrench, you can affect comments, you can delete comments, and I don't think there's only one person that should be able to delete comments. I'm talking about from Hangouts now, from other Hangouts. I'm not talking about obviously banning people here in chat, or banning or taking or discarding comments there. That's what a wrench is for. I'm talking about other Hangouts, and it seems that some messages haven't been coming through. So I never liked the idea of wrenches anyway, so I just removed most of them. No offense to anybody, and no accusations against anyone, really.
Leviathan is very interesting, and David Livingstone is connected to Leviathan by nucleus. So nucleus, if you're still out there, I haven't heard from you, man. And look, that's my fault more than anything else. But you had been following that Behemoth and Leviathan in relation to the Nile and David Livingstone's whole spiel, whole story. You know, so that's encoded within that as well. How you doing, Sandy? 123. How you doing? Good to see you. Earthrex, how you doing, man? Or woman? Good to see you. Yeah, they invert everything, including their children. Okay, that's interesting. That's interesting. I was saying the last time. Oh, hi Tom. I'm going back a little bit in the comments. Only one thumb up. That's what I was saying. Look at thumb backwards. Behemoth. Behemoth. Come on. That a big X in the center of your keyboard. The thumbs up, thumbs down. Icons chosen here. Again, when the page was laid out. Google are main clue givers. They all are. They're facilitators. You know, we wouldn't be able to obviously be here in this fashion if not for many different factors. But Google is a major one. You know, it's a major factor, allowing free access to sort of tools of mass communication. So yeah, everything that they've designed here pretty much has a significance, and there's no greater significance than the thumb there. And as I say, having it at the X at the center of your keyboard. Now, if it's not the X at the center of your keyboard, it is at mine. So that's all I can say about that. Not a perfect sort of X. It's like you have one diagonal shorter than the other, but through the H at the center, that's the X as you draw it, like, you know. So yeah, backwards, everything is inverted. And the reason why everything is inverted, I talked about that. No better place to hide the truth. So this law of inversion stems from the very basis of everything, really. So if they've taken our Earth, right, which you can just equate it to a disc, if you will, a coin, and they've rotated it 180 degrees, and the area that, when you rotate a coin through your finger and your thumb, the area that it fills is a sphere, right? So what they've done with the truth, the disc is flipped 180 degrees and given us a sphere. So in order for us, if we have the sphere, in order for us to get to the truth, we need to unflip it and remove as we go. And when we do, then we get the disc. So it's that idea of inversion, and that applies across the board, and especially in terms of words and codes within words. So yeah, that's the Tom reference. Tom, all to Behemoth, and I won't dwell on that. Behemoth is very important, and more important still, in light of what I'm sort of finding out about Elohim and what that encodes. Because it's all about us. It's all about our story. So everything bodily is containing us, right? So what we do with everything bodily is perhaps vital, you know, and it's coming to a certain realization, which is what Flat Earth has allowed. Flat Earth has allowed many people to remove themselves from the bond or the bondage of atheism, you know, that necessary sort of logical destination, the only destination on the line when you take science as being above board and honest, you know. So yeah, many people have found, at least if not in specific, they have found a creator for themselves with Flat Earth. So we can take it further and view everything in this new light. And well, I think there's very much to be found. Very much, yeah, very, very much. Thank you very, very much. There's so much to be found. So, yeah, physics rules forever. I think I said hello. Okay, yeah. Everything seems to be flowing okay. So I'll just continue on doing what I'm doing. I'll go down to the bottom just in case there's any friend requests. But yeah, Irving, you know all about. That's what started off in Elvis there, but I did make that equation between Elvis and Alice. So another connection to Alice in Wonderland. As flat earthers do, yourself a favor, read it. Alice in Wonderland. The Beatles were all about Alice in Wonderland, especially Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. That was just all about Alice in Wonderland. And there within Alice in Wonderland, we find the dodo. We find that Paul is the dodo. And we find that the dodo has an intricate connection to flat Earth. And, you know, I've been through all of this before. Yesterday, I think it was the day before, I showed the Frohawk dodo, my avatar here. Let me just bring it up on screen again, because we're going to be talking a tiny bit about the dodo anyway. So this is just give you a little bit of context. So you can see the avatar here. You can just type it in yourself if you want to know more information. That's the Frohawk dodo, commissioned by the Rothschilds in 1907. The dodo bird has no relation to flat Earth in any sense, really. You know, if you take the dodo bird in its literal story, we've hard pushed to find a tangible connection to the shape of the Earth. But yeah, if you don't take the story literally and you understand that the dodo never existed, but represents, was crafted to represent something else entirely, which is the changing face of the flat Earth post-destruction, post-inundation. There was a time of destruction, and the face of the Earth changed, simple as that. So the dodo was crafted around this changing face. And if you look at the screen here, you have the bill of the dodo. You can equate it to America, South America, as it wraps around the top. The neck would be the Mexico area, Gulf of Mexico. Around then the breast area is coming around the coast of the United States, the eastern coast, and to the left side of the wing, up and around we have Alaska, and up and around the back area we have Russia here, China below, extending all the way across. And to the full picture then we have Africa underneath the wing. And yeah, that's the idea. But here's my point. On the back of the dodo, there we have letters. They're clearly visible here, at least to my eyes anyway. If not, as I said, to your eyes, go and just type in Frohawk dodo into YouTube or into Google, Wikipedia, and this picture will come up, and examine it yourself. And this letter squashed in. It's USSR. Now, Paul was the dodo, right? So when Paul or Fall, there was a switch that took place between Paul McCartney and his replacement. But that's all got to do with the dodo representing a division, division in two, bifurcation. So this is what these two represented. But when the Beatles broke up, Paul set up a band called Wings, right? Wings. Now, underneath, in Alice in Wonderland, the chapter 3, from one version only, the Sabian version, we have a face underneath the dodo's wing, which was identified as the face of Paul/Fall. So there we have that connection. But if you look over the wing again here, these letters become clear, USSR. And that's exactly where I've said that Russia is in relation to the dodo here, and the dodo map, if you will, on the map. So what are the chances of that, first of all? Very, very slim. Well, it was very, very slim, but very, very slim. Very, very slim. But having this greater context, then it sort of makes a lot more sense. Didn't Paul have the song with band Wings back in the USSR? Back in, now Paul is the dodo. On the dodo's back is the USSR. You understand? Just in case anyone is under 35, 40. USSR was the old name for Russia, present-day Russia, and sort of amalgamated with local territories, their countries. So that's that's just one of the things. That's just one of the things regarding the dodo. So when the information I'll be presenting later on, it's based on the back of that. So you can see that if there is some coherence to what I'm saying here, there seems to be a story written in a certain fashion, projecting or putting across certain information, right? Or imparting certain knowledge, if you will, if you have the right context. So this is the game that I understand is going on. You might say it's a subjective game. You might say I'm just another fool of myself. I'm the sanest man I know. Simple as that. Absolute sane all my life. Never lose cognizance. Never do anything too mad, or you never think anything too mad. You know. But our reality is fucking mad. So if I'm asked to consider a mad thought, what am I going to do? Does that make me mad for considering a mad thought? And then expanding upon it, maybe, you know? No, everything is fucking mad. Everything is mad. Because if you're going to say everything is not mad, everything is normal, then you're going to have to describe normal. You won't be able to do it. Won't be, and especially in a flat earth sense, there's no way you can describe anything as fucking normal. Because now more than ever, you're in a big deep black hole and you don't know who the fuck you are, where you are, what the fuck is going on. Everything is suddenly changed and shifted. So these are down questions for the individual, and I'm speaking, I'm actually looking at myself, speaking to myself. So as I'm looking at myself, my right hand is holding a cigarette, whereas in reality my left hand is holding a cigarette. And I talked about our body parts being a mirrored line down the center. It's literally a mirror. Literally a mirror. Your left side is a mirror of your right side. And these are all things that it's the pathway I've been led on, and you can't aim this sort of stuff at anybody. I just come on here and say what I have to say. Who are you supposed to aim at? There's no one following along. There's no, I don't have any interaction with anybody regarding this stuff, or not cooperation, you know, that sort of thing. It's sort of a joint endeavor, or so. But if you're object to smoking, I smoke, like, so I'll smoke away. So no offense there. Okay, just to look down, 24 viewers, excellent. 24 is 888. Talked about Douglas Adams earlier on, 42 being the answer to everything, life, the universe, and everything. But if we reverse 42, we get 24. What might 24 represent? 24, 2 12s, or 888. 888 is the number of Jesus. Why might that be? Jesus, Father, Son, the Holy Spirit. When we look at the heart of Aristarchus, there we have the 8. You can't miss it. So what might the 8 represent? Well, the 8 is a twisted 0, right? So it's the 0 divided in 2. And if the 0 is everything, the everything immaterial, and that's what the Creator is, right? The Creator is everything, both immaterial and material. There's nothing else, is there? There's nothing else. This is what the 8 represents. And once we understand then that, yeah, this is all a story about us, every single one of us. We share the same story. There's no distinction between us. We all have the same inherent sort of capabilities, potentials, and we are all made of the same stuff in this limited form. So the greater story is there for all of us to piece together. What we do with it, it's enough to drive some people mad. It's enough to drive me mad anyway. But for lots of people, I've been called mad more times than you could swing a cat at a wet fish. I don't know how many times you could do that. You can beat 9, you've beaten me. Right? Okay. So yeah, let me just go down to anyone requesting wrenches, and then I'll just sort of get to move on with what I was talking about. So Elohim, okay, yeah, Elohim. I'll get onto that in a bit. First of all, I want to. Is there trolls around? Is there trolls around? I mean, listen, this is why I don't fucking like giving out wrenches, because it's, for me, it's sort of, it gives the idea that you're sort of putting an onus on somebody. You have to be there, you have to act, you have to make the decisions. I'm like that at all. But look, you do got people coming in just with the specific intention of distracting and just making a laugh of everything. And who needs that? You know what I mean? And especially some of the stuff that I talk about. People out there know that, you know, I hit a few targets. In some of the things I talk about. But yeah, there are hurdles along the path. And it's only by leaping those hurdles that your legs get stronger, right? Or falling and then returning to leap those hurdles. And once you sort of manage it, you can do it quite easily then. So we have a comment. Let me just read a comment by it, so I don't sort of like going to chat. And listen, any requests for wrenches, just let me know. If everything is running smoothly. Dominic, there you go, bud. I don't, look, no pressure or anything, man. Use it if you want. If someone's bothering you and you know they're just pissing around, just get rid of them. Anyone else, let me know. But yeah, let me just Hogarth here. Hogarth. There's a picture of an eye in your avatar here. This is what it looks like to me, Hogarth. Very interesting. You have the name you have there as well. I'm sure it's encoded. It's like watching. All right, it's like watching Ted Rogers on 321 with such tenuous links to things. Well, what are your links? Your whole thoughts are off the mental scale. You need some help. There you go. Well, get the fuck out of here, man. Get the fuck out of here. You don't know my thoughts on anything. You know my thoughts on anything. And, you know, if you want to link right now, get your ass in here. You don't have to go on camera or anything. Watch me fucking destroy you and your ball earth nonsense in quick, smart time. And I'll do it above board, and I'll do it politely and calmly. And you'll go away with your head between your legs, man, because I'll have you destroyed in 15 minutes. I'll have you beaten. I'll have you down in 2 minutes. I'll have you headlock and wedgied 5 minutes. 15 minutes, you're a pool on the ground. You have no comeback. Simple as that. So I've moved about 10 years beyond that in your terms. So yeah, you don't like it? Get the fuck out of here, man. It's not meant for you then. But you can stay if you like. Enjoy the show. You can say what you like about me as long as you're not deliberately sort of nasty. That's fair enough. Have a bit of respect, if you will, then, if you're going to hang around, and understand that it's a man coming from his own point of view. So he's speaking about what he's thinking, and whether right or wrong, we can understand that it's coming from a certain position, right? A certain distinct individual's point of view. Set up your own channel. Let's have your point of view. You know, so it's easy to, and I've encountered your type. This is what I'm saying. Could waste time on these people. I've encountered your type going through the years, and if I listened to comments like that every time, well, I certainly wouldn't be where I am now, wherever that might be. That these links are there, there's absolutely no doubt, and that this reality and this realm is not at all what is presented. There's absolutely no doubt either. So what it is, this is what I'm trying to get towards, right? What exactly it is. So just because you're mentioning, so Elohim, L-O-H-I-M, L-O-H-I-M. So L, capital L, O-H-I-M. Now, what might that mean? What might that mean? We talked about L before, the O being the everything, the immaterial everything, right? With the one in terms of the theta being the material, the countable, right? That's the TH. So L-O-H-I-M. So there we have O-H-L or L-O-H or whatever combination you like. And I said, okay, that rings a bell. That rings a big bell. Lo and behold, let me just give you out a few holidays, right? The holidays, deck the halls with bells of holly, holistic, Holland. So it's all about what the letters themselves, behold, lo and behold, B-H-O-L-D. But in the center of it, we have the H-O-L there. So aloha, aloha, right? We have the A inserted there as well, which is significant in itself. But my point being that these three letters, in terms of what they represent, encompass everything that we are. The L, the O, and the H. The L being the material. This is what I'm saying. The H being the heart bridge, right? This is the bridge between the material and the immaterial. And then the O, or the D, if you think about the D, I mentioned this about the D before, in terms of a half a theta, right? These are the contexts that I'm thinking in. But yeah, to have that just hit me, Elohim, because I was thinking in terms of, you know, the path always being paved for us as we make our way down Conspiracy Avenue. There's many different shops that are selling their wares. And just like the story of Jesus being the Son, you know, not having a real existence, was waiting in the wings for us to pass by and pay attention to. Yeah, we have the story of the Elohim then taking the place of a singular creator We have a grouping or an organized mass effort, and another in-depth story then developed regarding who exactly Elohim might be. But as far as I'm concerned, for the most part, it will increase your sort of your overall understanding, but you don't need to get any too deep into it. If we can understand the ABCs and the 1, 2, 3s, then we can understand that the whole story is being told about us ourselves. So these aspects, the as I said, holidays, Santa is ho, ho, ho. So Santa is, he's not hol, 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 but Santa is an anagram of Satan, and it represents materialism. So the L is left out of the ho, ho, ho. So, yeah. These are clues for us that sort of slot, I think, nicely into place when we have the proper context. So it's by realizing that this is your story. This is telling the story of you, and in essence, just as a summation of what I think is going on, we are God, we are the creator, we are aspects of the creator. We've set ourselves a challenge, and the clues are left for us. So therefore, if we entertain this idea, well, wouldn't you want to solve the challenge that you set yourself? That's the way I'm thinking now. And it's clues like that are everywhere. Sheol, I was thinking of the name for hell. Hell being above, everything is reversed. Hell being above and cold, hell in the sense that we know it. But in reality, hell is beneath us. Or sorry, not in reality. This is according to the story. Hell is beneath us and full of fire, So everything is inverted. So yeah, the Elohim, and more specifically, Elohim. That set off an understanding regarding the deck of cards and what the Jack, the Queen, and the King represent then in relation to the H, the O, and the L. Jack L, Mike L, Jack's son. So we can equate the J, the Jack, to L. We can equate the Queen to the H, the Queen to the O, right? And we can equate the H to the King. That leaves us with the 8, the Ace, the Alpha to the Omega. So I'm not going to go too much further into that, because as I said, that just sort of struck me last night, but that definitely has lots of legs. I already talked last year and this year as well, but more so last year, about the HIQ and how we are a embodiment of 3 dimensions and 0 dimensions. So we have these different aspects to us. And the heart center, then, that central 0 point, if you will. And of course, a 0 is a big O, right? So that 0 point is within all of us. But the heart center is the bridge, Our body dies, our heart decays, our essence is still in existence. But yeah, the heart is the bridge. The L represents the lower material aspects to everything, to our being. And then the O, the overall, the immaterial. So I can expand further in regards to what's the point, where does this all lead to? What's going on here? Well, it's all about understanding, isn't it? It's all about understanding, first of all, this is what's going on, or this may be what's going on, and then what needs to be done. What can be done with, imagining that some of this is true. These are the bigger questions, and fundamentally, does it involve just completely going off on your own? You can't share this stuff with anybody. You can't do it. So you have to sort of forego everything, leave everything, I think, and take that ultimate step. The ultimate step being transcendental meditation, or transcendentalism, not transcendentance. No, that's not right. Transcendent. What's the? That doesn't sound. That's not rolling off the tongue. Transcendence. No, that's not right. Yeah, you know the idea anyway. So yeah, is that what it means to amalgamate everything? So I think, yeah, there is a physical process you need to go through, and when you do, I think maybe this is the ultimate realization. You ever ask yourself why nearly every, well, to begin with anyway, nearly every web address had .com, .com, .com. That's right up and in your face. They're telling you, right? They're keeping it there. They're keeping it at the surface. You ever wonder, yeah, why all of the dick and ass references to everything to do with NASA? Well, yeah, it's to keep it front and central. So when you come, yeah, to consider these things in a new light, you will externalize a whole story and apply it to yourself. And of course, you know, all of this stuff applies to us. You know, we can't separate ourselves from the greater picture, because you are the greater picture, you are the greater story. So yeah, the Elohim. So that's my take on it. EL, O, or L, just specifically L as well. As I said, Mike L. Jackson. Yeah, so that equates to Jack, the deck of cards, all these children's things, children's introduce all these things. You know, yeah, once we can read them right. The Queen of Hearts, if you look at a love heart, it's 2 2s, and I showed a picture of this the other night. It's 2 2s backwards, lined up. You have a love heart in the center. That's why it's the Queen of Hearts, right? The 2 2s, the two divided aspects come together. So, yeah, excellent realization. And the king then is associated with the H. We can easily see that in terms of the letters. And indeed, in code dodo, K has the same value as H, which is 8. So, yeah, that's along the lines I'll be thinking. And the more I think about it, yeah, the more significant this is. So once we understand this, ultimately, this is the goal, then understanding the external nature somewhat of our reality, and then understanding the internal and what exactly is going on with us, the experience we're here, and what can we do then to sort of amalgamate these aspects of ourselves, you know, and reach that, transcendence. That's it, fucking transcendence. That's what I was trying to think of. Right, but that's even the clues in the name, end to end, or from end to end. You have an eye on your penis, right? You have an eye in your head. Transcendental, meditate. The transcendental through the teeth, right? That's where behemoth comes in as a chant, a mantra, right? You're telling yourself that you are the TH, be, he, me, TH through closed teeth. When you do it through closed teeth, you set up a frequency and vibration within your body. If you change around your habits, eating a massive one, you've got to clear out your whole system, and yeah, then what you put into your system will be processed in a different manner. This is the body of Christ, and yeah, it's nothing to be sort of squirmish about, but it's our bodily fluids. Lots of us have heard the idea that urine, for instance, is very, very beneficial to general health. And I hold to that, even though I'm not the best sort of advertisement for that. I certainly hold to that. So that's just one of the bodily fluids. So what else? How do we all come here? Because there's more core bodily fluids than urine, i.e. semen, right? So yeah, this is generally the idea. When Christ went on his fast, he came out of the desert illuminated. He was offered the whole world from above a high mountain, and he refused. Of course, the devil is lived backwards. So it's the material temptation versus that understanding of the greater whole. And yeah, the body of Christ, we get communion at church. What is it telling us? And I've come to the realization the church isn't actually, I said this maybe last time, the church isn't actually lying to us. Just how we're hearing or how we're reading. It's all very interesting indeed. It's all very interesting, and that's my take on that. And as I often say to myself these days, keep it simple. Keep it simple, just like in Alice in Wonderland, in Pinocchio. Now we're reminded of the ABCs and the 1, 2, 3s. Michael Jackson sang about ABC, 1, 2, 3, ABC, 1, 2, whatever, however that went. Michael Jackson faked his death. We already mentioned Paul McCartney was the dodo. There's an intimate relation between Paul McCartney, Elvis. Michael Jackson married Elvis's daughter. And the Beatles, Michael Jackson bought up the catalog, the back catalog for the Beatles. So Michael Jackson faked his death, but this character called the Five Alive Dodo came back on the scene. No one has made the connection regarding the dodo and flat Earth that I've been making, I've been talking about. But there was that connection certainly made because it was pretty in your face that this character, this popular character, for some reason, Five Alive Dodo was indeed, or could very well be indeed, Michael Jackson. So there's a greater story being told here. That's all I can say. And well, as I said there, just mentioned the Jack in relation to the HOL. We have the Jack equivalent to the L. We can even see it with the J for the Jack. If you mirror it, you have what looks very close enough to an L. But yeah, with the J for the Jack, the O for the Queen, and the H then for the King. And that leaves us with the Ace, and that's a different story in itself. With the A, what exactly does the A for Adam represent? And I talked about that, the A versus the V, you know, they're pointing in different directions. So if something is pointing upward, it's pointing towards something specific in relation to something that's pointing downwards. So Mother Earth, Father Sky, yeah, this is all representative of the thought versus the deed, if you will, or the action. So yeah, I'm just gonna, I'll just continue like this because this is the way I do talk anyway. So even if you're still here listening, maybe you'll get a thing or two, or maybe you get shag all at all. I can't help that, I can't help that. This isn't any show or anything like that. This is just me speaking out. But before I read Pinocchio, I'm going to tell you what I found yesterday. So that's a good sort of segue into. Okay. All right, you understand it, Tom? Okay, man. No worries. Don't be taking any shit from anyone, but at the same time, yeah, maybe time people out first. Do I generally read some? I read the comments sometimes. I go back in the repeat show and read the comments sometimes, but not too often these days. So yeah, just the story at this stage, Tom. Lots of messages in here. The pi. Let me tell you about pi briefly. Physics rules forever. Pi is a relation of, so theta, we think of the symbol of the theta with the circle and the diameter, right? So that represents the immaterial, which is the no beginning, the no ending. You can't count to zero. Zero is unquantifiable. And then you have the one. This is the countable. This represents, if you will, God. We should stop using terms like that. These are all loaded terms. And what we do when we hear words is we paint it, we revert to a picture that was probably in formative years formed, associated with the word. So we got to let that go. And this is where theta is sort of, well, it's not perfect, but it's, no picture presents itself. When we say the theta, what the figures represent themselves, the one is the countable, all things material, and the zero then is uncountable, no beginning, no ending, immaterial. So the material plus the immaterial is all there is. And yeah, when we look at a circle and the relation of the circumference to the diameter, we have this figure pi. And pi is given as 3.14, just 2 decimal places, 3.14 to 1. And 3.14 to 1 is pi. If you look at pi written down, it's very like T. So talked about bringing the two sides in at the H, the heart center, and raising the crossbar. It gives you the capital T. So the TT races represent, and also what the 144,000 saved, if you will, represents for me. It's about us, the individuals, bringing the two sides together and raising the crossbar to the top. So yeah, we have 3.14 now. In mathematical terms, 3.14 instructs you to multiply 3 by 14, which is 42. 3 times 14 is 42. 42 is the answer to life, the universe, and everything, but everything is inverted. So then we can reverse 42 to get 24, which is 888. So 8 being the twisted 0 in triplicate, 3, the magic number, gives us 888. 888 in triplicate gives us 888, 888, 888, which when you add it up is 72. And we're told there are 72 names for God. So this is why Carl Sagan represented in one of his stories, it's all storytelling, but in one of his stories, pi as the number of the creator or the number of God. So that makes sense to me. And that God, if you will, with the Elohim, telling you that you are the H, the O, the L, that God is within. That God is within. Let your godliness come out. Now, in one big sense, we are demigods because we're torn in two. So it's these two halves that produce the capital T, which gives us the TT, which gives us the pi, which gives us the circle, and the amateur, which gives us the theta, which gives us the TH. Be, he, me, TH. Okay. So. Okay. Urine is good for lots of stuff, but not let me get too involved in that. Okay, Tom, you don't want the wrench. I can remove that easily. Did you sort someone out? You gave him a quick smack and told him not to do it again and left it at that. Okay. So I'll get on to what I found yesterday. Let me just get it. Yeah, not going anywhere, Brian. Take it easy. Come on. Messing around now. But this is something personal. Just something personal, and yeah, anytime you want to wrench there, but I don't tend to go into to chat for too long, and I'll try to sort of make my way through this fairly briskly, because I covered all this before, but it's brought back to mind now again. So first of all, let me just. I've already talked about the dodo in terms of its utmost significance. So when you have characters like Paul McCartney, Michael Jackson, Thom Yorke, all with this direct, just to name but a few, just direct connection to the dodo, then there's something else been told here, and there's indeed a wonderful story been told through the dodo. But like everything else, if we take things literally, well, we're missing a lot. So we've grown out of the literal. And just as you mentioned that, I was just thinking about that earlier on. I mentioned it before, Mr. Michael M.W. Star Wars, ARISTARCHUS, Star Wars. Anytime you hear the word star, it's all referencing the same thing, and that's ARISTARCHUS, the only star there is. And yeah, I'll leave chat now and continue on. So let me just share my screen. Actually, we'll move that to the side now. Yeah, it's grand. Yeah. So we went through this. We found the hidden puzzle. Beatles connection, Beatles sort of reference to, actually, I can just go down here and press inwards, yeah. Okay. So Beatles reference overall Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Mark Sergeant Peppers. Mark Sergeant was a prepper, or he put out his only internet presence was a prepper's guide. So a little clue for you. So yeah, not significant about Sergeant Pepper's, but beyond that, don't need to get into all the intricacies. There's a big mirroring theme going on the cover of Sergeant Pepper's, and if you don't know that, I mean, it's not something you can't know, but you'd have to sort of investigate it. There's a big puzzle ingrained and designed within it. And what happens is you have centered around Paul on the cover. Let's just imagine this is Sergeant Pepper's for a minute. Every character to the left has a mirror image or a counterpart to the right. And how they are identified is via puns and sort of word association. And this work has been done on other places, but that is certainly the cover art was designed that way is beyond doubt, you know. So this is just one of the messages that's told us, but you don't have to go that deeply into it. There's a sort of a much more simplistic and childish, and I don't mean that in a bad way, approach to all of this, where you can get the answers. And remember, this whole story is about you. Don't imagine everything so infinitely complex that you'll never have any chance, should you live a million lifetimes, to figure it out. No, that's only by externalizing everything and making everything much more difficult than actually what it is. So simplifying everything, which is what we did with this. This is the top magazine on the earth, The Economist, 2015, again owned by the Rothschilds, who were responsible for the Frohawk dodo. Remember the dodo with the USSR on its back? The flat Earth map given to us on arrival was the Gleason's map. Gleason, again, the sun is central. The sun is Aristarchus. So, but the Gleason's map featured Australia at the top. Not accustomed to seeing it like that at all. Australia's always at the bottom. When you rotate Australia around, well, a bird jumps out. That bird looks very much like the dodo, and indeed, that's exactly what the dodo was designed around, which is the flat Earth map. But there's more to the story than that. But just that there's this intimate connection, absolutely satisfied. There's no doubt about it. But here we have another publication. Earthwide influence. Anyone in the know knows what's going on. They'll be able to follow the signs. Lots of people, all the conspiracy crew spend months and months talking about this, and you know what sort of predictive programming was ingrained within it, and all that sort of stuff. Whereas by simplifying it, we can find a very simple puzzle indeed. It's a force the line, follow the line puzzle, and that leads us. Yeah, our starting point is Putin here. Top of the head is your man, which is mirrors Paul in the Beatles, right? So on the cover of Sgt. Pepper's, we have Paul with the hand above his head. As we follow down Putin's hand, we can see that it lines up with the Pied Piper. The Pied Piper, and what the Pied Piper, what's the story about the Pied Piper in basis in general? Well, the children followed the tune, right? They followed the Pied Piper. So like children must become, this is a children's game. Let's follow the Pied Piper and follow the arrows, follow the directions. Where does that lead us? I'm just going to go through this briefly. This is preempting something. Here, Brandon, hold on a minute. Oh, good. This is preempting what I want to talk about now, but just giving you context as well. So pretty much just follow the line down, follow the arrows. So we go down until we meet this boy here. He's pointing here. And this is very significant as well. Anyone who's been tuning in, remember I pointed out, this is part of the solution, the fact that we have the oval-shaped Earth, first of all, but that we have the Indian Ocean here. I pointed out that's very significant and ties in with the solution to the hidden puzzle. So the arrow is pointing, or the plane is pointing at the ball. Just pointed at Patricia Steer's guitar here on the left. Remember, Mola Movers and Shakers, look at The Economist 2015, 2000, not 2000, The Economist magazine in general. Mark Sargent and Patricia Steer. This is Mark Sargent's microphone, Patricia Steer's guitar, Mr. and Mrs. Flat Earth that they feature on here. I also mentioned earlier on Douglas Adams and Panic. This is the Babelfish to translate. The Babelfish were all about universal translators. So yeah, keeping it simple. Arrows pointing here, pointing. That ball is pointing to the elephant or to the panda. And look, you can see the arrows going up his chest, right? So they're pointing that way. If you're not sure about that, look at the arrow between his legs as well. The last time I talked about the overall puzzle here was the turtle is missing a payload. With Flat Earth, right? With Flat Earth, we can recognize the turtle with the elephants, with the disc. I know I'm repeating. This is all just about repeating, but it's for, you know, the ultimate purpose is just me explaining just what I found yesterday. And maybe you might see, maybe why I might see it as significant as well. But anyway, the turtle is missing his payload. He's missing the elephants, and he's missing the disc Earth. Right on top. If I remember pointed out before, the elephant, you can see it a little bit more clearly here. Here is the reflection is the eye of the elephant. Here's the ear around, and you can see the trunk coming around here and up. Right, so that's literally the elephant found. Now we're looking for the disc Earth, right? And that indeed, as we follow the clues, so up we go, follow the line. The line continues after we leave the panda up to Merkel here, who is a sort of central stop point. Now, as we go left, well, we're met with destruction here. We're torn to bits. So as we go right, up along the arm, then we come to Obama, or Will Smith. Will Smith. Another first by the dodo. Will Smith being Barack Obama. Get the fuck out of here. Well, you get the fuck out of here. You get the fuck out of here. Do your own comparisons yourself. Do your own investigation. Ask yourself why these two friends, these two most famous of black people who have had supposedly intimate connections in the past, both publicly and privately, as in terms of being friends. There's only two pictures of them together, and both of those are photoshopped. Both of those are problematic. No, something else going on. So yeah, Barack Obama and Will Smith, it is all theater. This is what this picture is telling us in a big sense. We're Alice here, you see. We're looking on at the theater. All the reality is puppetry, and vice versa. All the cartoons represent something more real than you can ever imagine. This is how everything is inverted as well. So as we move our way up, again, following the arrows, following the clues, as we move our way up, we're met with this shadow that's across Obama's or Will Smith's front, and it's pointing. Look, it's pointing. No doubt that it's pointing. It's pointing over to this guy particularly. And let's look just underneath his nose. Well, it looks very much like an arrow, doesn't it? Look. We pointed upwards, so we move our way upwards. And we come to a junction. Do we go left or right? Well, if we go left, there's a red stop sign here, so no further progress. But if we go right, and we're in this sort of maze of blackness, we're looking for arrows, and again, pointing down, right? So there's no other sort of exit point. So we're pointing down here to center. We drop down along the shoulder and come down here. And again, we see the arrow pointing us down. And as we continue down the line, well, who do we meet? Spider-Man, who's known for following, sort of connecting strings and lines and moving from place to place. So we're now connected with Spider-Man. We move our way up his leg until we come, look, following the lines. Again, force the line, as Brian Mullen, the plant, told us. Before Brian Mullen left in a blaze of drama, he gave us the Bible, literal interpretation. He refound God, he found a wife, found happiness, and he also introduced us to Robbie Davidson and was apparently from behind the scenes a big part in setting up the first Flat Earth Conference in Raleigh. You're being set up, people. You're being set up. So realize it anyway and sort of leave it behind, because you don't want to be set up again, do you? Anyway, if we continue up here, we go along Spider-Man's left arm, and it's in a dead end, right, into a pocket here. But as we move along on his right arm, as we come along, take this alleyway. If we continue all the way, we can see we're to the end of the line. There's no further progress. But just at the right area, we can jump off, we can throw a line. David Cameron's fingers are pointing down, right down here, and we meet this character. And when you look up this picture by Michelangelo, it's actually, the woman is looking the other way, right? So this is listed in all the, artwork. Or sorry, this is listed in all the information regarding all the characters here. In, what do you call it? That's with the phone. I'm just going to leave that ring now. I'll get my ring back in a while. In the artwork, the original information that came along with the artwork, all of these things were detailed. So more clues for us included there, but they're never going to give you the answers, of course, because there's a puzzle in play. Anyway, this picture is reversed. So when we mirror that picture the way it is in reality, then this lady is looking at Alice, right? So as we look at Alice, then we can follow Alice's gaze. Alice is all of us. And it's a very interesting, so encoded this work here, but there's some very interesting things to be said about Alice. And I've been through all of this before, how she has this, not a very girl-like visage to her, or appearance to her. That's because Alice is all of us, is male, female, man, male, female, man, woman, male, female, adult, child in one. And that was represented somewhere specifically here. I don't want to get lost in this too much now, but sort of refreshing my mind more than anything else. Yeah. So it was represented on her foot here by the olive branch, and there we have a mirror of the olive branch. Olive is I love branch, and these branches feature on the UN map as well. You know the UN flat Earth map, another encoded version that I decoded. I'm happy enough to say I decoded that. You know, pretty much to where it was pointing, and it was pointing us to the moon, actually, pointing us to the moon. And up here is pointing us to the moon as well. Look, we have this thing in the sky, which it's not, how can it be Earth? So if this is Earth, it's what we take as Earth, isn't it? But maybe it's not Earth. What are the bodies in the sky of this particular recognizable size? The moon and the sun. But we have one face and another face. So are they telling us that the moon and the sun are two faces to the same coin? I think they are, but they're also telling us a bit more. Look at where India is pointing. Look at where the smile ends here. Look. And around this area, this is Madagascar here. Well, what's to be found in this area here, where this is pointing as well? And I also made particular attention to this. This is all leading somewhere now, honestly, and this is not to anyone else who's listening here for the purposes of criticism. This is for people who've been listening maybe all along, and you know the significance I placed in this. And yeah, here we have another prominent feature here. They could have featured America to the front, for instance, but no, they have this area of the Indian Ocean. But yeah, that's what they're telling us up here. Just to put it simply for you, the sun and moon are one, but there's more to it. The layout of the land is also reflected in the layout of the sun or the layout of the moon. If the sun and moon are one and are Aristarchus, and Aristarchus is reflected in the sky and in the land as well beneath us. And that's what I say Aristarchus is. That's part of Aristarchus' external story, that it is everything without. It's the barrier. It's it's all of the luminaries. You know, it is the ether. It is the ground beneath our feet. It can be seen expressing in the clouds, in the sands, in the waters earthwide. It is responsible for the tides, etc., etc. Yeah, that's the external story. And the internal story then, well, Aristarchus, an emblem of Christ's aura. Jesus is within us. And, well, Aristarchus extends all the way to the very heart of our matters. So, yeah. All of these different clues for us, when we have the proper context, we can follow them. Because you can see, not very difficult to follow. You just need the proper context. And I suppose in one sense, when I looked at this first in 2015, about October time, I did recognize the puzzle here. And I only got to here, but I didn't have the proper context. Even though I was a flat earther, But when I came back to it, then I could see, yeah, this is telling us this is the puzzle. The turtle is without something. The turtle represents the longevity, and it represents saline waters, right? So this is the environment in which the earth is in. The elephants then represent solidity and strength of dry land, right? So this is the earth itself. So we look at the turtle shell as the boundary, so we can see that. Yeah. So the elephant itself, the elephant represents the dry land, and then the disc itself. Well, that represents the face of the dry land. So it's going to look a certain way, right? But remember, we have an inundation by these waters of the turtle. So the face of the earth changed. So this is what the dodo represents. But yeah, anyway, to Alice, we follow Alice's gaze, and yeah, we're led along here to the Cheshire cat. So they're associated via the story. We can see the arrows pointing as well. Look, all purposefully drawn in out. There's no detail accidental. And I take it that the same hand that has designed this is the same hand, if you will, that wrote the Bible. Honestly, that's how expansive this power is, and it's again the same story being told. And yeah, this is my take on it. And as we follow the arrows, yeah, we make our way across Obama. We can see the 3-3 here. That's Masonic symbolism. This is to tell you a few things. First of all, 33, a very revered number. But you can also see it's 33, but it's not quite 33. It's 33 and a third, right? So it's not quite 2 3s here or 3 3s. It's 2 3s and a sort of a bit of a 3. So this is 33 and a third. This is also referencing Jesus, you know, the 33 that Jesus died at. But it represents the division, right? It's the E. The 3 is the E, and that's one side of us, one aspect being divided from the other. So this is what we need to do. We need to bring the two aspects together. This is what the name Jesus itself. The S is. This is why all the numbers and letters are relatable. But the S is the 2, right? So we can see easily how the S is the 2, and that will play its part in the solution here in a second. So understanding this. And understanding that it references a divided state, and understanding that it references the amalgamation of the two divided aspects as a future hope, I guess, or as a future certainty, then we can understand all of these numbers in a different sense. But the 33 itself then is letting you know that there's a puzzle here, and yes, you have come to the end of the line. Now you need to solve it. So this is our final clue. And yeah, this will all become pertinent. I better hurry it up now as well. This will all become very pertinent. We're told this is a ghost. There's a stupid story attached to it, according to the official explanation. We're told it's a ghost, but it's not. Here we have within the book itself a hidden hand. It's all about following the arrows. And as we follow the arrows down here, well, first of all, it's not a ghost. It's a condom. It's a prophylactic. When we think in terms of islands, Reunion Island, Reunion is the neighboring island to Mauritius. Reunion, so I just talked about the 3-3, the divided state, the reunification, the bringing together of the disparate aspects of us, of ourselves, that this is what it's all about. It's about unity, division, reunification. So here we have the Reunion Island and Mauritius. And when it came to this point in the first time around, already knew the solution was going to be Dodo and Mauritius. Already knew that. So it was just about finding the path there. And yeah, this turns out to be Reunion Island. We have the prophylactic, the condom used in coitus, of course. You know, so that fitted well. As we go down to they follow the arrows, yeah, and we've already come to the understanding that everything has to be sort of looked at from a different angle, inverted, reversed. But as we do that, as we point upwards, we have O-D in holiday. And oh, fuck it, look, remember I was talking about the Elohim? There we have Hol, I-D-A-Y. Excellent, Irving. Excellent. Fuck it. See, this is how everything sort of ties nicely together. So if you didn't know what holiday meant in that sense, you just go, yeah, it's a common word. But yeah, hol, Holi, Elohim, you see, it's the same sort of thing. It's telling you the same thing. So Holiday. Excellent. Excellent now. So anyway, here we have Holiday Island, the destination, prophylactic, Reunion Island, Mauritius. We're given a few clues as to where it might be located if we pay attention, especially up at the sun and the moon here, again, which feature the same general area, pointers, and here's the pointer here. This is exactly, well, not exactly, but very close to the range of where Mauritius is actually located. Mauritius is famous for one thing, particularly, that's the dodo bird, right? So Holiday Island, one is Reunion, one is Mauritius, and the solution is Mauritius, and, well, this is where the S is the 2 as well. Look. So here we have, pointing upwards, OD, right? But what's this symbol here? This is a little wave. You can see how they might be little waves, but what's this doing here? What is that? So it doesn't seem to make really sense until we realize, well, it's another clue for us. So this one here is pointing down to it here. So we have OD, and that looks like an S, but it could also be a 2, right? So OD times 2, OD, dodo. That's your solution, categorical, to that hidden puzzle, and that is the solution. Or not, well, it would be the next step. Let's say you wouldn't automatically go, well, okay, I've seen the hidden puzzle here. I've come to the right solution. Now, what the fuck has that got to do with anything? Well, it's only when you see that there's a puzzle in place in the first place that you understand that the dodo, let's just Gleason's map, the dodo, the face of the Earth post-inundation, is that disk. So is the face of the Earth that the turtle is missing here. And so we would continue on, look into the story of the dodo and Mauritius itself, probably have come to realize how fake it was, just in light of knowing that lots of other stuff has been faked, and then seeing the significance. But we had it in inverse. We already knew the significance of the dodo in terms of the flat Earth map, and I knew that would be the answer. And indeed, everything I found since then has just led me to the same conclusion, inexorable place. So the dodo and Mauritius particularly significant for me, but also when I was younger working, this had always stuck in my mind. Believe me or not, like someone mentioned it one day, and after that, then it's one place I always had in mind. If you asked me 10 years ago, and I could have gone there easily actually, but if you asked me 10 years ago, you have to pick one destination, I would have picked Mauritius. I would have picked Mauritius because it was just one of those things, from an early age, it's been on your mind to go to, or, and the fact that it turns out to be so associated with what I'm finding here regarding the dodo is pretty amazing. But this is getting on to the main point of this before I start reading, and then let me... Right, so when we were going through this process last year, this is what I'm talking about. So it was about a destination. What would you do? What would you do to sort of see any of this out? Is there any sort of clues you could follow? And is there any place you could go? And we mentioned this last year on the Hangouts. Yes, I think there is. And this is our clue. Once you realize the significance of all of this, I think we're actually free to contact this man and take a trip. But I guess you have to know, there's no bluffing anybody. You have to know what you're talking about. So it's for the sort of pure-hearted in that sense. You could turn up and ring this man. He might have a series of questions to ask you. And knowing that you were a bluffer, you just heard it from me, you mightn't qualify to get on board. I think it may be something along this line. But let me just, this is when lots of information was being collected regarding the dodo. I think Happy Ray might have provided this link, or maybe Nucleus. I'm sorry if I didn't identify the right contributor. But take note of the names, and this will be interesting in a second. Again, this is all leading up to somewhere. Bob Shepton. Bob is short for Robert. Rob Earth Shepton, right? Rob Earth. Why would Earth be robbed of its previous form, maybe? Joined the ranks of Chichester and Sir Robin Knox Johnson. So listen to what it says about Robert here. just briefly, this will all become significant now. The former chaplain, and he's a sailing legend. Right, so we have that religious association. This it's only very short, so let me just read this. And this ex-Royal Marine and retired school chaplains, I understand, is one of the most remarkable voyagers, explorers, and ice adventurers of our time. A modern-day H.W. Tillman. Over the past 25 years, he has circumnavigated the world and sailed over 130,000 miles in every latitude from the Arctic to the Antarctic. In the 1990s, he took a crew of underprivileged schoolboys to the Antarctic and back across the Atlantic. He has sailed to and climbed and high altitude. I don't believe any of this, by the way. This is this man's crafted, or through him, a different story has been told. So anyway, he has sailed to and climbed in high altitude numerous times and scaled previous unclimbed Arctic mountains, to give but two examples they go on to here. So I'll read these actually, because it's been a while since I read this. So now with a new significance in terms of Aristarchus, the north, set your compass north. You can equate Aristarchus to Mount Meru if you like. There's more to it, the story than that. But Aristarchus, we can see, you can't see Mount Meru from anywhere. You can see Aristarchus in its reflected form from the moon. Actually, when you do look at the moon, all you're actually seeing is Aristarchus, because you're looking at a kaleidoscopic, overlaid menagerie of different perspectives of the same thing, different magnifications. So anyway, so here are two examples. In 2001, Shepton, does that name mean anything, Irving? Shepton, Robert, as I said, Robert. But they're telling you a story of, you know, if you've gotten to this point, you'd be able to sort of possibly see through the language used. Anyway, let me continue. In 2001, Shepton, 2001, significant itself here, right? Sailed through Davis Straits to Baffin Bay, where, at its northernmost point, he skied across the remote and hostile Bylot Island, a landmass of 11,000 square kilometers with no settlements. 11,000, yeah, it's 100. So it's 1111. It's 111.1 kilometers to. Is the distance chosen for every degree of longitude and latitude at the equator. So that's a very interesting number in itself. And yeah, I've talked about that as well, that the Earth is flat. You have a grid-like coordinate system for the flat Earth, the spherical coordinate system with the dimensions. The dimensions can be applied to the sky. This is again the law of inversion. That'll give us a rough contour to the overall barrier if we know the height at its apex, at its center. And that the center of the barrier that we're under, the barrier begins low at the north, rises highest at the equatorial areas. This is the key to so much, and then lowest at its southern peripherals as well. So when we imagine the sun going around as a reflected aspect of a different source, then we can understand why people in Australia have to look in a different direction to people in, let's say, India or Ireland here, or America, when they're looking at the transit of the sun. We both see it coming in from the same side, right? But we're looking in different directions when we're looking at the sun. So this is all explained very easily by a contoured barrier, reflected barrier of this form. Anyway, let me continue on here. There was an epic 10-day traverse with the ascent of 8 peaks. So 8 peaks. 8 peaks. I mentioned Aristarchus. Let me just bring it up for you in case you think I'm fucking off my game. There you go. Look at the 8 in the center. I'm also considering something very, very interesting indeed. Very, very interesting. Because I pointed out before, it's Aristarchus now. I mean, this is, you can just type in crater Aristarchus and you get many, many different offerings as to the same thing. But this is very interesting. Can you see the 8 immediately in the center? Right. This is ultimately what the 8, all 8s represent. 8, if I turn this on its side, we have the infinity sign, but it all references back to here. what I mentioned before about the Earth being an anagram of heart, and if you just move the letter again, the front letter again, we have ear, TH, ear of TH. And as we zoom in here, you might be able to see it from here. We see what looks like an ear right here. And this is significant itself in terms of our own ears. Our own ears are, well, I've said it about our body design. This is where Aristarchus extends to the heart of our matters. But our own ears now might be, that's along the lines I'm going to be looking at. Very deep clues in terms of maybe Aristarchus, maybe making some sort of an equation between the two here. Yeah. I was going to say, oh yeah. Just as I realized about L-O-H-I-M, right? I thought about body parts. We have the elbow. There we have the letters, well, you can insert the H, but we have the L-O-H taken care of. Also the lobe, the ear lobe, right? L-O-H-B-E. Or L-O-B-E, but L-O-H, why can't it be L-O-H-B-E? So B-U, so that's what the lobe is telling you, B-L-O-H, or B-H-O-L, or O-H-L. You know, and I talked about what I think that they represent in terms of the material, the immaterial, and the bridge between the two, the heart center. So yeah, there's the Aristarchus, and there's the 8 in the center. So excellent. And I've said this before, when you're looking at this here, friends, I'm definitely of this mind, you're looking at the universe. You're looking at the universe in all its glory. This is what's been projected against the sky, and this is what reflects, in, first of all, in terms of Polaris. So where this is emanating from the North Center, Aristarchus, we have a direct reflection in terms of Polaris, and the clue is always in the name, Aristarchus. So we know that Polaris is the fixity of the sky, right? Everything seems to revolve around that, but it's not quite as fixed. It does revolve in small circles on a nightly basis. So this then, as Polaris expresses, the direct reflection of Polaris is the sun, right? So that's on its path according to the path of according to the path of Polaris, and of course Polaris then is dependent on the path, whatever's going on with Aristarchus. And here we have, well, John, as I said, Aristarchus is responsible for everything, the tides, the giant whirlpools. So I mean, this is the sort of the realm we're into considering. And yeah, the reason I brought it up, this is the 8, we can see at the center here. But yeah, what you're looking at here is the whole of the night system. As the sun itself reflects, then its direct reflection is the moon, right? And it's just a series of reflections. Everything is being reflected from a central source. So the law of inversion again, instead of a billion, gazillion luminaries, there is only one, and that is the one source of all, Aristarchus. Anyway, to put that away, put that aside for the minute. I just brought that up in relation to the 8 here. This is what it's referencing. This is when anytime you hear an 8, anytime you hear the word star, it's all pointing you back to the same thing. And we can maybe get a grasp. Even if you don't believe me, it doesn't matter who believes me or who's going along, not about believing, who goes along with any of this. It's pretty interesting as something to consider, isn't it? We've been considering too much of the same stuff, I think, for too long. And well, this is not just interesting to consider. There's so much evidence. Well, that I suppose you need to find ultimately for yourself. But anyway, let me continue on here because this seems to be on a hide into nowhere. I'm not making any sense, but it'll start to make sense. In 2004, he sailed to Greenland with a crew of skiers and climbers, encountering a storm in which he had to heave to for 26 hours. At Kangar Glugskok, Shepton made a personal ascent to a 1,650-meter peak over 30 kilometers distance, some of it on loose and difficult terrain, taking 28 hours. Later, he rounded Cape Alexander, I suppose, and continued until he was stopped by a pack ice at 78.32 degrees north, probably the furthest north that a glass fiber yacht has ever been in Greenland. think all of these choice locations and coordinates are significant. Unfortunately, so here we go. This is the point of it. Unfortunately, while overwintering in the ice in 2005, a fire from the diesel heater consumed his 33-foot westerly Dodo's Delight, and she burned. Right. So, and she burned to the waterline and sank. Undeterred, Shipton sought out and bought another similar westerly discus, and he has continued westerly discus. Yeah, he's continued voyaging to the north since. Okay, well, I'm shocked at that now. That the Dodo's burnt. I don't remember reading that the first time, man. I wonder might that have been changed, because I mean, at the time when we were reading this, we're considering that this was a clue for us. Once you had made your way to certain realizations, you know, maybe the potential was to hop on board this. There we have the 33 again. Hop on, or you know, get in touch with Mr. Shepton here and maybe take that trip. It might be the reward or something. You know what I mean? Take you beyond the north, because he's so focused in central regarding traveling around the north, especially. But I don't remember reading that it was burned to the ground and sank. But isn't that interesting now that I'm considering this? Because the reason for the Dodo's existence in the first place, again, the Dodo being the changing face of the flat Earth, was the destruction of the giant trees, crystalline trees. That's where all the sand and all the beaches and all the world comes from. It's the sawdust of the crystalline trees. All Earth is sand, right? So yeah, the reason for the Dodo's genesis, emergence like the phoenix, right, out of fire, was the mass destruction of these giant crystalline wondrous trees. And fire was a big aspect in this overall destruction. I've been saying that. I've also been saying that in terms of Pinocchio and the prominence of fire. And actually, I think we're coming up to chapter 11, where we get a bit more detail on this fiery character who seems to be the creator, or at least the instigator of Pinocchio. So we'll find out a bit more into that. But that's very interesting. I definitely don't remember that from reading it the first time around. So that's that gone out of the way. So I can't. So that's fucking interesting now. It's even more interesting in terms of what I'm going to say, because I had that in mind, and there was definitely a passageway open there, and it seems now definitively that it's closed. I mean, I'm thinking to myself, why would I have continued to think that this was a possible way home when the boat itself was sank and burned to a cinder? So I'm not sure if this was added or not. I don't know how you can check that, but that is definitely, as I was reading that, new piece of information, but even better now because of what I'm going to just say in a few minutes. So since this, my mind, as I pointed out earlier on, had still been, let me finish this. He has completed the unique feat of sailing a 33-foot sloop through hostile Arctic conditions of the Northwest Passage in both directions in successive years. His latest voyage, west to east in 2013, aged 78, was in particularly bleak conditions, and the feat was managed by only 3 boats that year. He won the Apollo. The Apollo relates to the sun. The Apollo missions went to the moon. No more opposites could you get unless they're telling you that the moon and the sun are the same, because we know they never went anywhere. Can't land on the moon. Maybe what they were referencing was a venture north. So when they mentioned that we went to the moon, knowing that the moon is a reflected artifact in real time, it is a reflection of solidity. The solidity that the moon is reflecting is the solidity of Aristarchus, right? So yeah, it's interesting. The Apollo Yachting Journalists Association Yachtsman of the Year in January 2014. We asked him where his boat was now, and he replied, in Greenland. So I need to ask his cruise plans this year as he heads into the 9th decade, and that's from 2014. But it seems now to me, so yeah, if I was of that mind, maybe look a bit more into this character, and I certainly, in my imaginings, could see some sort of potential encounter and a few questions to be thrown your way, you know. So if you had no idea about the real significance of the Dodo, you'd soon be told to be no room on board, no room at the inn or something, you know what I mean? but I'm happy now to have read that in the sense that, okay, in the sense that, yeah, my eyes were elsewhere. My eyes were Mauritius. So Mauritius has been coming up just in my own brain again and again, and just asking myself what actually is in Mauritius, what may be found there. When you look into the, so that was went over last year. So just revisiting now, I'm glad I did, because yeah, this is news to me that the Dodo's Delight, a 33-foot sloop by this Robert Shepman, burned and sank. So that way is out the window, which is fine. I'm fine with that, because as I say, I was leaning towards Mauritius. It's been on my mind for whatever reason throughout the years, just in a vague way. If I was to go anywhere, that's where I go. So when you look up the coat of arms of Mauritius, this is what you get here. What the insignia, Stella. So here we have Stella, right? Star, Clavisque, Maris Indici, heart and key of the Indian Ocean. This is what it translates as. Star and key of the Indian Ocean. So there we have the star reference again. And, you know, like the dodo puzzle there, sort of knowing the solution before you follow the puzzle to its fruition, the big help. I think it's a similar sort of thing here. As I say, anytime you hear the word star, it's always referring you to ARISTARCHUS. So anytime you see the word star, here we have ARISTARCHUS as well, or here we have a star as well, but it is the star and the key of the Indian Ocean. We have the dodo on the left, and we have, well, a stag on the right, or a doe is a deer as well, isn't it? A female deer. So this is the crest. We have this mirroring type with the, what could you describe these as? I'm sure it goes through down here. Look. Palm trees. Isn't that interesting, Irving? Palm trees. You've had a lot to say about palm trees, and you take things down a completely different path that I do. And it's I wouldn't say it's not that it's difficult to follow along. It's just that you have a different sort of focus on things. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's interesting. There we have the palm trees. You certainly talked about that before. But we have see the melding in the middle as well, and we have, if you look closer, let's just bring this up smaller. I can't see it here now. You can see a checkerboard background. Look, see that? Oh, Jesus. You can see the checkerboard background. This is the duality. This is the divided state we're in. This also represents Aristarchus as well, because when we look at the central peak of Aristarchus, we see an area of light and an area of shade. So there's nothing natural about Aristarchus. This is the most unnatural, if you will, supernatural thing we can get. So, but we're not separated from it. It's an intrinsic part to all of us. So we can come to terms with it somewhat. But yeah, here we see a melding of the left and the right, the sinister and the dexter into a sort of an umbrella over the top. But anyway, that it is the star and the key of the Indian Ocean points us to its significance. And well, remember I talked about the giant trees and the destructions are responsible for the dodo's origins. And there we have a tree reference, trees. Well, whatever else to be made of these. I've had my thoughts on this in relation to Alice in Wonderland and the key presented to us with the wasp in the wig, discarded chapter. So anyway, let me get to the point. All of these things are sort of combined together to just confirm, not to confirm, to forcibly sort of have Mauritius as a destination, possible destination. And if you were to look for some sort of exit point or some point of ultimate interest, which would take you I don't know, to the core of, you know, whatever might be going on. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, I'm very happy I read that. I'll leave that up because I'm going to just study that a bit more. I already talked last year about the HI cube and how we get the shield from the HI cube. And the HI cube is just, when you look at the side of a cube, instead of looking at this shield as a two-dimensional thing, look at it as a three-dimensional thing. So if you look at a cube with its sides as a three-dimensional thing with all centers of each side of the cube going into a zero center point, you'll get what looks like a parlophone. So this is what's represented here as well. And fundamentally, as I say, it goes back to us. We're an amalgamation of the three dimensions and the zero dimensions via the heart center. So I know this might sound like waffle, but it isn't waffle really, because I've sort of talked about it before, and I was sort of refreshing my brain as well about exactly what I did talk about. But this is getting to a point anyway, and I just wanted to mention this because this is what I found yesterday. So I was just walking along with the dog, and outside okay, I can stop sharing that. Okay, so yeah, outside a bookstore, there was just a bin, and it was full of, no, it wasn't rubbish, like it was just clean, discarded paper, materials like that. There was a book on the top. I said, oh, look at this. And the very first, I just picked it up, and the very first thing it was this. First of all, Trail Finders. Can you see that? Yeah, Trail Finders, Indian Ocean. And the very first word at the front is, look, Mauritius. And there we have that's what immediately jumped out. I said, fuck, Jesus. Just thinking about it as well. I was probably just thinking about Mauritius in light of all of this, juggling and all about the bigger sense. So as I walked a bit further along the road, found the next, this is the thing I found. Look, no, I know you might say, well, what of it? But this is what I found. Little star, twinkle, twinkle, little star on the ground. And now, because I've related all of these things, I related the dodo, what it represents in my own brain, to or Earth here in general, and the sort of greater story, the destruction of ARISTARCHUS, the destruction of the giant trees, you know, the crystalline trees, which I view now as a part of assimilation. I sort of have to, really. I have to. It's, you know, but that's where the trail leads. I had already satisfied myself to a big degree. So to find that, and again, the star, and how many times I've been saying it, anytime you hear the word star or see a star, anything like that, it's always referring to the same one star alone, ARISTARCHUS. And even there, ARISTARCHUS, yeah. Cus is a diminutive, it's a shortened version of the name Jesus in Spanish. So it's ARISTARCHUS. And it's also associated with the cross, right? So we have the cross at the center. You are Jesus, and yeah, the story is yours. So isn't that amazing? I found one other thing. Just after the star, I found that. So dominoes, dominion. This is our dominion. This is our inheritance. This is our earth, right? This is, if you will, but not that we own anything. We don't want to own anything, right? Just want to know the nature of our relationship to this place. And as far as I'm concerned, yeah, we are the highest power. We are, each and every one of us, we are, I use loose terms, we are the highest royalty. We are kings and queens in our own right, every one of us. And when we leave this experience of duality, we'll realize that. And maybe the whole purpose of all of this is to realize this when we're having the experience. And, you know, should we succeed in that, who knows what happens afterwards when we leave the shell. I don't know. You come out of a booth and you look at whoever and you go, oh, fuck, cool, man. And then you high five or something. I don't know, get on with shit then. Who knows? You know, but all of this connects. Yeah, too many things have happened to me. Too many signs to know that they're not significant. So maybe this is the last step along the way. I don't know. How the fuck come anyone going to Mauritius soon? How do you get there without a passport? Or without a legal name? Well, I am king of Era, so I could claim that sort of authority, that unalienable, creator-given, inherent right to travel. Maybe that's what it's sort of pushing me along the pathway to. But yeah, isn't that amazing? So in the context of everything, remember, there's nothing bigger than flat Earth, right? So to sort of get into the nuts and bolts of it in terms of what I'm getting into, which very few anyway will go along with me, right? This isn't a journey you hold hands with somebody, you take them along with you. But that it is a journey nonetheless of great significance to me. Yeah, all these things happening. What you got to do, you got to follow the signs sometimes. So the fact is, I said as well then, that even before any of this, Mauritius held a significance. And for whatever reason, it's all pre-written, as I say. And look, HOL, you dug HOLE, you dug yourself. We find ourselves in the right hole, don't we? Yeah, if that's what we are the creator. We are aspect of the creator. But then, if we look upon this as a challenge, we have set ourselves. Well, maybe we'll approach the whole thing in a completely different manner. Just let the dog in here. Come on, Brown. So lots to ponder on here for me. That was only yesterday. Right above me then as well is Polaris. Right above me is Polaris. I went out the door the other evening, looking out, having a piss or something. There above me in the sky is Cassiopeia, but because of the particular angle, there it is looking down at me with a big P. So P for Peter. And there was me having a P as well. Okay. Interesting stuff. Just a little bit of a diversion there. But you're seeing that there are real connections here. If I'm putting the pieces together in the wrong position, it's fair enough. There's no one else to go to. And where I'm at in terms of the dodo, for the most part, has been a sort of stable position. That it has this dual representation, as everything is. Everything is black and white, or nothing is black and white, or everything is black and white included. Okay, let me sing a song, and then I'll read Pinocchio, and then I'll hit the road. Here's another thing, because you can see, I can't see my screen. Let me just share my screen again. Here's another thing I was looking at. I thought it very interesting as well, just by chance. Colorado, ARISTAR Casino in the state of Colorado. It's a nice dodo is in Colorado in North America. But there we have our ARISTAR. It encodes ARISTARCHUS, but America, ARISTARCHUS, right? America is a Meru car, right? So a sort of a conduit on the way to Meru. Now, what is Meru? Mount Meru. What have I equated Mount Meru with? ARISTARCHUS. There we have ARISTAR Casino. That was just a by the way, and it sort of supports what I've been saying as well, that there's clues for us everywhere. It's just about putting the proper pieces together. The people out here, if they're still here, who will have you arguing endlessly over a ball earth or a flat earth, flat water, or, space or no space, or gravity or no gravity. Nonsense. Cast them aside. They're keeping you away from the things that you already know to a degree, which is, you know, the Earth is not a spinning ball as presented. So what is it? Where are you? These become the greater questions then. And well, when you start asking these questions, clues like this present themselves left, right, and center. I said some massive clues. The Nike, the Nike logo is another one. I say that the Nike swoosh and all swooshes you see represent the central peak at the heart of Aristarchus. The Nike logo and the motto is just do it. Just do it, right? Just dodo it. Coincidence? I don't think so. I don't think so. So let me think of a song to sing now. Okay, I'll do that one. I know these words, but I'll bring up again. Away from my excuse me, start again. Away from my window, leave at your own chosen speed. I'm not the one you want, babe. I'm not the one that you need. You say you're looking for someone who's never weak, but always strong, to protect you and defend you, whether you are right or wrong. Someone to open each and every door, but it ain't me, babe. No, 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 it ain't me, babe. It ain't me you're looking for. Go lightly from the ledge, babe. Go lightly on the ground. I'm not the one you want, babe. I will only let you down. You say you're looking for someone who will never promise to part. Sorry. Someone to close his eyes for you. Someone to close his heart. Someone who will die for you more. But it ain't me, babe. No, 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 it ain't me, babe. It ain't me you're looking for. Go melt back in the night, babe. Everything inside is made of stone. There's nothing in here moving, and anyway I'm not alone. You say you're looking for someone who'll pick you up each time you fall, to gather flowers constantly, and to come each time you call. A lover for your life and nothing more, but it ain't me, babe. No, 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 it ain't me, babe. It ain't me you're looking for. No, 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 it ain't me, babe. It ain't me you're looking for. Okay, the guitar's a bit out of tune there, I could hear it. So sorry about that, my voice is a bit hoarse as well. So forgive me for that. It Ain't Me, Babe, Bob Dylan. Very good. Everything inside is made of stone. Everything inside is made of the S tone. The S tone is the TH. Everything is ultimately frequency and vibration. I think that's what sort of solid matter is expression of frequency and vibration within an incongruous, diverse, I guess, sort of medium. And yeah. My favorite song for years. Let me just get the dog here. Come in here. What are you standing out there at the door for? There's nothing out there. Right, sit down. 9. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, yeah, sorry if there's any comments in the chat. You know the usual, man. I mean, I didn't even intend to be on for so long, but let me continue reading with Pinocchio anyway. It's sort of getting interesting. Once again, I'll just pass some remarks as they occur, but hopefully keep it to a minimum. What's wrong with you? Can you not see I'm reading Pinocchio? No respect for Pinocchio. Yeah, so let me continue on with chapter 11 and maybe read for 20 minutes, half an hour. Well, I went back to chapter 3 the last time to tell you that, yeah, this is Pinocchio is us, Pinocchio. So Pinocchio is pineapple. Look at how an apple or a pineapple propagates, how it grows. It grows in a spiral. You have a spiraling pattern around the outside. This is very particular as well. And it's representing a greater sort of truth in terms of, well, first of all, let's say, for instance, when we look at the moon, we're looking at a spiraling, reflecting pattern that needs sort of unraveling. And as when you do unravel it or re-ravel it together, it all comes back to the same thing. But we see this spiraling pattern throughout nature as well. And this has got to do with a circular pattern in movement. So this is particularly pertinent as well. But just the only reason I ended up here, yeah, I went back to chapter 3. So the whole family was known as Pinocchio. Pinocchio the father, Pinocchia the mother, and Pinocchii the children. So we are all in one. This is what Pinocchio represents. This is what Alice represents, all of us. We are in a divided state. People try to trick you in a childish way to say, how come 1 and 1 equals 3? Well, when a man and woman make a baby, that's 1, and this 1 equals 3. No, the math is wrong. We have a half plus a half equaling 1 there, right? With the man and the woman each equaling a half, and then the child being the one whole, which grows into a half, if you know what I mean. But yeah, it's literally Pinocchio. We've been told this is a story about us, so pay attention and think about it in terms of the right terms, and that is how it applies to you. So we moved, I think we finished at chapter 10, so let me just move on to chapter 11. And just to say again, seek Kul Odai. I'll have another look at that name. And I also didn't go looking for the original artwork as well, so I'll maybe do that next time. But there we have CC again for 33. So another representation of the divided state we're in. So those who know what 33 represents in this greater sense will understand that this story is pertinent. And as I said, the reason I'm reading it in the first place is because of how significant I have heard it is to groups like the Masons, etc. So chapter 11. Fire Eater sneezes and forgives Pinocchio, who saves his friend Harlequin from death. In the theater, great excitement reigned. Fire Eater that was really his name, was very ugly, but he was far from being as bad as he looked. Proof of this is that when he saw the poor marionette being brought into him, struggling with fear and crying, "I don't want to die, I don't want to die," he felt sorry for him and began first to waver and then to weaken. Finally, he could control himself no longer and gave a loud sneeze. At that sneeze, Harlequin, who until then had been as sad as a weeping willow, smiled happily and leaning toward the marionette, whispered to him, "Good news, brother mine. Fire Eater has sneezed, and that is a sign that he feels sorry for you. You are saved." He was judged and forgiven by the devil, right? For it be known that while other people, when sad and sorrowful, weep and wipe their eyes, Fire Eater, on the other hand, has a strange habit of sneezing each time he felt unhappy. The way was just as good as any other to show the kindness of his heart. After sneezing, Fire Eater, ugly as ever, cried to Pinocchio, "Stop crying. Your wails..." Well, I'm not going to put on a voice for that. "Your wails give me a funny feeling down here in my stomach, and each..." Two loud sneezes finished his speech. Oh, sorry, that's a sneeze. Achoo. Okay, sorry. Okay, achoo. "God bless you," said Pinocchio. "Thanks. Are your father and mother still living?" demanded Fire Eater. "My father, yes. My mother, I have never known." "Your poor father would suffer terribly if I were to use you as firewood. Poor old man, I feel sorry for him. Achoo, achoo, achoo." Right, achieve, okay. Three more sneezes sounded louder than ever. "God bless you," said Pinocchio. "Thanks. However, I ought to be sorry for myself, too, just now. My good dinner is spoiled. I have no more wood for the fire." Oh, sorry, yeah, okay, this is the Fire Eater saying this. "I have no more wood for the fire, and the lamb is only half cooked. Never mind. In your place, the lamb, yeah. The law of the lamb. Yeah, the law of the land." Oh, there was another excellent one regarding Irving, regarding Elohim. Elohim. What is another big Masonic symbol and widely regarded and understood to be some sort of symbol of importance within the Masonic organization? That of the owl. So spell owl. Of course, we have been taught to spell it in terms of OWL, but could it not be spelled OHL? An owl sees in the dark, right? So we're looking for clues where there are none apparent. We're looking for truth where there is none apparent. So that I thought that was very good. The owl, OHL, yeah, could very easily be spelled like that. So when we understand that it's all about the phonics, and then when the letters have been changed, they've been changed purposefully. So yeah, just to continue on. The lamb's only half cooked. Okay, instant choice of words there. Never mind. In your place, I'll burn some other marionette. Hey there, officers. At the call, two wooden officers appeared, long and thin as a yard of rope, with queer hats on their heads and swords in their hands. Fire Eater yelled at them in a hoarse voice, "Take Harlequin, tie him, and throw him on the fire. I want my lamb well done." What a pickle Pinocchio is in then, right? Think how poor Harlequin felt. He was so scared that his legs doubled up under him and he fell to the floor. Pinocchio, at that heartbreaking sight, threw himself at the feet of the Fire Eater and, weeping bitterly, asked in a pitiful voice, which could scarcely be heard, "Have pity, I beg of you, Signor." "There is no signori here. Have pity, kind sir. There are no sirs here. Have pity, your excellency." And hearing himself addressed as "your excellency," the director of the Marionette Theatre sat up very straight in his chair, stroked his long beard, and became suddenly kind and compassionate, smiled proudly as he said to Pinocchio, "Well, what do you want from me now, Marionette? I beg for mercy from a poor friend, Harlequin, who has never done the least harm in his life." "There is no mercy here, Pinocchio. I have spared you. Harlequin must burn in your place. I am hungry, and my dinner must be cooked." "In that case," said Pinocchio proudly, as he stood up and flung away his cap of dodo, "in that case, my duty is clear. Come, officers, tie me up and throw me on those flames. No, it is not fair for poor Harlequin, the best friend that I have in the world, to die in my place." The Harlequin globetrotters. These brave words, said in a piercing tone, made all the other marionettes cry. Even the officers, who were made of wood, also cried like two babies. Fire Eater at first remained hard and cold as a piece of ice, but then little by little he softened and began to sneeze. After 4 or 5 sneezes, he opened wide his arms and said to Pinocchio, "You are a brave boy. Come to my arms and kiss me." Pinocchio ran to him, and scurrying like a squirrel up the long black beard, he gave Fire Eater a loving kiss on the tip of his nose. "Has pardon been granted to me?" asked poor Harlequin with a voice that was hardly a breath. "Pardon is yours," answered Fire Eater. F-E as well, Fire Eater, you see it, F-E? I would have a lot to say about F. And if you think about how an E is transformed into an F, the lower aspect, right, is moved up the central rib, the central spine, until it becomes non-existent. So all you have is a doubled-up version of the top covering. This is the capital T, if you will, and what it represents. So yeah, interesting there that we just have the Fire Eater as FE is also flat Earth, right? And pardon is yours, said the Fire Eater, and sighing and wagging his head, he added, "Well, tonight I'll have to eat my lamb only half cooked. Beware the next time, marionettes." At the news that pardon had been given, the marionettes ran to the stage, and turning on all the lights, they danced and sang till dawn. Right. Very interesting. Very interesting, and that clear sort of parallel between good old Satan himself, or herself, or itself, and the pitchforks and the flames and the horns. Again, a very brave turn on behalf of Pinocchio. How many of us would make the same call? Yeah, Pinocchio exemplifies characteristics within all of us. And I guess, maybe this is what we can look at in terms of this whole experience we're having, this process of transformation and transmogrification from whatever we were or whatever we thought we were to begin with to, what we will end up being or realizing. So yeah, let's continue. Chapter 12, okay. Fire Eater gives Pinocchio 5 gold pieces for his father Geppetto, but the marionette meets a fox and a cat and follows them. The next day, Fire Eater called Pinocchio aside and asked him, "What is your father's name?" "Geppetto." "And what is his trade?" "He's a wood carver." Does he earn much? "He's a carpenter, just like, here we have this wood theme as well. Jesus was a carpenter. Think about what carpenters do. Carpenters fashion useful items from dead wood. Dead wood. Right, so this is the point. A tree cannot live and produce a table. Or, parts of the tree has to be sacrificed to produce a table. So which is better, life or no life? That depends on perspective, doesn't it? So anyway, yeah, pay attention to that because it is significant. And again, trees, in terms of how we think, are just a vague reflection of trees, how they really are. I'm going to say these are still in existence. And yeah, these are the giant crystalline trees. All of these jewels, all forms of matter are decayed form of the original crystalline. But yeah, we can notice that, yeah, this wood theme plays a massive part throughout. When we understand or ask the question, indeed, what is wood? And as you know, I'm coming from giant trees populated the earth. And everything was completely fundamentally different underneath. That's certainly where I come from. Otherwise, you explain to me where all the sands and all the beaches and all the world came from, and all of the different equations we can draw between mountains, stumps, etc., and tree parts. It becomes uncanny, and yeah, as I said, that's just part ingrained into my thinking. Whether you accept it or not, it's no concern of mine. Anyway, he's a wood carver. Does he earn much? He earns so much that he never has a penny in his pockets. Just think that, in order to buy me an ABC book for school, he had to sell the only coat he owned, a coat so full of darns and patches that it was a pity. Poor fellow. I feel sorry for him. Here, take these 5 gold pieces. Go, give them to him with my kindest regards. Pinocchio as may easily be imagined, thanked him 1,000 times. He kissed each marionette in turn, even the officers, and beside himself with joy, set out on his homeward journey. He had gone barely half a mile when he met a lame fox and a blind cat, walking together like two good friends. The lame fox leaned on the cat, and the blind cat let the fox lead him along. "Good morning, Pinocchio," said the fox, greeting him cordially. "Do you know my name?" asked the marionette. "I know your father well." "Where have you seen him?" "I saw him yesterday standing at the door of his house." "And what was he doing?" "He was in his short sleeves, trembling with cold. Poor father, but after today, God willing, he will suffer no longer." "Why?" "Because I have become a rich man." "You a rich man?" said the fox, and he began to laugh out loud. The cat was laughing also, but tried to hide it by stroking his long whiskers. "There's nothing to laugh at," cried Pinocchio angrily. "I'm very sorry to make your mouth water, but these, as you know, are 5 new gold pieces." And he pulled out the gold pieces which Fire Eater had given him. At the cheerful tinkle of the gold, the fox unconsciously held out his palm that was supposed to be lame, and the cat opened wide his 2 eyes till they looked like live coals, but he closed them again so quickly that Pinocchio did not notice. "And may I ask," inquired the fox, "what are you going to do with all that money?" "First of all," answered the marionette, "I want to buy a fine new coat for my father, a coat of gold and silver with diamond buttons. After that, I'll buy an ABC book for myself." "For yourself?" "For myself. I want to go to school and study hard." "Look at me," said the fox. "For the silly reason I wanted to study, I have lost a paw." You can see Pinocchio sort of gathering a little bit of maturity, responsibility from his experiences, but there's always temptation in the path. And I constantly say that when it comes to flat earth inquiry, isn't it? The whole arena is controlled. So it's very tempting to sort of settle into one of these little nooks and crannies prepared for you, because you'll be allowed to rest there indefinitely. Whereas, when you have an eye for the game, we can see these temptations for what they are, and sort of move beyond them. Next page. "Look at me," said the cat. "For the same foolish reason I have lost the sight of both eyes." At that moment, a blackbird, perched on the fence along the road, called out sharp and clear, "Pinocchio, do not listen to bad advice. If you do, you'll be sorry." Poor little blackbird. That just reminds me that the Beatles have a song called Blackbird. So maybe as they were referencing, I might type that in afterwards, the Beatles and Pinocchio. So there might be some overt references to Pinocchio, because of course the Beatles were instrumental in guiding us to, Alice in Wonderland again, as adults, but more especially as flat earthers. So the Beatles have a song called Blackbird. Poor little blackbird. If he'd only kept his words to himself, in the twinkling of an eyelid the cat leapt on him and ate him, feathers and all. After eating the bird, he cleaned his whiskers, closed his eyes, and became blind once more. "Poor blackbird," said Pinocchio to the cat. "Why did you kill him?" "I killed him to teach him a lesson. He talks too much. Next time he will keep his words to himself." By this time the 3 companions had walked a long distance. Suddenly the fox stopped in his tracks, and turning to the marionette, said to him, "Do you want to double your gold pieces?" "What do you mean?" "Do you want 100, 1,000, 2,000 gold pieces for your miserable 5? "Yes, but how?" "The way is very easy. Instead of returning home, come with us." "And where will you take me?" "To the city of Simple Simons." Pinocchio thought a while, and then said firmly, "No, I don't want to go. Home is near, and I'm going where father is waiting for me. How unhappy he must be that I have not yet returned. I've been a bad son, and the talking cricket was right when he said that a disobedient boy cannot be happy in this world. I have learned this at my own expense. Even last night in the theatre, when Fire Eater, brr, the shivers ran up and down my back at the mere thought of it." "Well then," said the fox, "if you really want to go home, go ahead, but you'll be sorry." "You'll be sorry," repeated the cat. "Think well, Pinocchio. You are turning your back on Dame Fortune." "Damn Fortune." "On Dame Fortune," repeated the cat. "Tomorrow your 5 gold pieces will be 2,000. 2,000, repeated the cat. "But how can they possibly become so many?" asked Pinocchio wonderingly. Now, just noticing within Pinocchio we have no L, we have the O and the H, and it seems clear that Pinocchio is being walked through the sort of the 7 deadly sins, you know what I mean? And, you know, he's been tempted each and every time. And he's sort of progressing his way through. So obviously we're going to look forward to an evolution in terms of Pinocchio's thinking. But that seems obvious. But yeah, maybe that would explain why there is no L, because everything is opposite, you see. So Pinocchio is purely entrenched in the world of the material at the minute and all the temptations it has to offer, which again, Pinocchio is us. Pinocchio is us. So ask yourself how that might apply to you. I'll explain, said the fox. You must know that just outside in the city of Simple Simons there is a blessed field called the Field of Wonders. In this field you dig a hole, and in the hole you bury a gold piece. After covering up the hole with earth, well, I just mentioned hole earlier on, we have H-O-L, and the E then is in the whole E, spear it, and knock him out. Get in here! Why? Come in. You want to go out there in the cold. Get in here. What is that? Okay. After covering up the hole with earth, yeah. Oh yeah, I mentioned hole earlier on, H-O-L, and then the E. After covering up the hole with earth, you water it well, sprinkle a bit of salt, and then go to bed. During the night, the gold piece sprouts, grows, blossoms, and next morning you find a beautiful tree. This is loaded with gold pieces. So that if I were to bury my 5 gold pieces, cried Pinocchio with growing wonder, next morning I should find how many? Checking the beanstalk springs to mind. There we have Jack as well. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. It's very simple to figure out, answered the fox. Why? You could figure it out on your fingers. Granted that each piece gives you 500, multiply 500 by 5. Next morning, you'll have 2,500 new sparkling gold pieces. Fine, fine, cried Pinocchio, dancing about with joy. And as soon as I have them, I shall keep 2,000 for myself, and the other 500 I'll give to you two. A gift for us, cried the fox, pretending to be insulted. Why, of course not, repeated the cat. We do not work for gain, answered the fox. We work only to enrich others. To enrich others, repeated the cat. What good people, thought Pinocchio to himself, and forgetting his father, the new coat, the ABC book, and all his good resolutions, he said to the fox and to the cat, let us go. I am with you. Ha ha. Yeah, always be on your guard, right, Brand? The path is paved for us, and not everyone is who they say they are. Okay. Gold, just as I thought, gold is AU. Aristarchus, anagram of Christ, Aura, Christ, AU, RA is the sun, AU is gold. So Aristarchus translates as Christ's golden sun. This is what Jesus is when we enter the conspiracy realm. Okay, next chapter. Maybe read 2 more and then I'll shut it up. Shut up shop. Chapter 13, The Inn and the Red Lobster. Cat and Fox and Marionette walked and walked and walked. At last, towards evening, dead tired, they came to the Inn of the Red Lobster. Now, let me just say this as a something when we're listening to this. You might sort of say to yourself, this is very childish, or it's like looking for significance where there is none. It's much too simple a tale to contain any deep and profound information or knowledge. Well, I couldn't disagree more. I think the simpler you get, the more truthful, the more close to truth you will find, especially when any of these timeless offerings handed down to us by what I view to be the same hand that is writing all the rest of the tale. So don't fool yourself in that sense. Don't fool yourself in that sense. And you know, when we're told, like children, we must become, to enter the kingdom of heaven. Well, yeah, we have to go back to those prior times. This is when we knew everything, and we were sort of brought up in a strange land with a strange language that we had to learn, and soon enough it sort of overtook us. But yeah, to get back to that innocent stage, And just like with the Economist 2015 puzzle, simplify things. Don't entertain the complicated. Children can see the pathway where intelligent, educated adults cannot. So that's certainly the way I approach any of these things, and they're far from simple. And the chances are that they do contain everything. And should we come by the ultimate solution, we would see that. I mean, at the moment, we're not anywhere near that, I suppose, but we certainly have some solidity to our reckoning, you know, when it comes to trying to decode this. Anyway, let us stop here for a while, said the fox, to eat a bite and rest for a few hours. At midnight, we'll start out again, for at dawn tomorrow we must be at the Field of Wonders. They went into the inn, and all three sat down at the same table. However, not one of them was very hungry. Poor cat felt very weak, and he was able to eat only 35 mullets with tomato sauce and 4 portions of tripe with cheese. Moreover, as he was so in need of strength, he had to have 4 more helpings of butter and cheese. Fox, after a great deal of coaxing, tried his best to eat a little. The doctor had put him on a diet, and he had to be satisfied with a small hare dressed with a dozen young and tender spring chickens. After the hare, he ordered some partridges, a few pheasants, a couple of rabbits, and a dozen frogs and lizards. That was all. He felt ill, he said, and could not eat another bite. Pinocchio ate least of all. He asked for a bite of bread and a few nuts, and then hardly touched them. The poor fellow, with his mind on the Field of Wonders, was suffering from a gold piece indigestion. The dog is acting weird here. I'll knock him out in a second. Okay. What's wrong with you, Brand? Okay, anyway, supper over, the fox said to the innkeeper, give us 2 good rooms, one for Mr. Pinocchio and the other for me and my friend. Before starting out, we'll take a little nap. Remember to call us at midnight sharp, for we must continue on our journey. Yes, sir, answered the innkeeper, winking in a knowing way at the fox and the cat as if to say, I understand. As soon as Pinocchio was in bed, he fell fast asleep and began to dream. He dreamed he was in the middle of a field. The field was full of vines, heavy with grapes. The grapes were no other than gold coins, which tinkled merrily as they swayed in the wind. This seemed to say, let him who wants us take us. Right. You're coming in now for a while. You're not coming in now till I finish Pinocchio! Okay. I'm joking there with the dog, just in case you think I'm sort of cruel. Just as Pinocchio stretched out his hand to take a handful of them, he was awakened by 3 loud knocks at the door. It was the innkeeper who had come to tell him that midnight had struck. Are my friends ready? The marionette asked him. Indeed, yes. They went 2 hours ago. Why in such a hurry? Unfortunately, the cat received a telegram which said that his firstborn was suffering from chilblains and was on the point of death. He could not even wait to say goodbye to you. Did they pay for the supper? How could they do such a thing? Being people of great refinement, they did not want to offend you so deeply as not to allow you the honor of paying the bill. Yeah. Harsh lessons we learn along the path. Too bad. That offense would have been more pleasing to me, said Pinocchio, scratching his head. Quite a funny retort. Where did my good friends say they would wait for me, he added, at the Field of Wonders at sunrise tomorrow morning. Pinocchio paid a gold piece for the 3 suppers and started on his way towards the field that was to make him a rich man. He walked on, not knowing where he was going, for it was dark, so dark that not a thing was visible. Round about him, not a leaf stirred. A few bats skinned his nose now and again and scared him half to death. Once or twice he shouted, Who goes there? And the faraway hills echoed back to him, Who goes there? Who goes there? Who goes there? As he walked, Pinocchio noticed a tiny insect glimmering on the trunk of a tree, a small being that glowed with a pale, soft light. Who are you? He asked. I am the ghost of the talking cricket, answered a little being in a faint voice that sounded as if it came from a faraway world. What do you want? Asked the marionette. I want to give you a few words of good advice. Return home and give the 4 gold pieces you have left to your poor old father, who is weeping because he has not seen you for many a day. Tomorrow my father will be a rich man, for these 4 gold pieces will become 2,000. Don't listen to those who promise you wealth overnight, my boy. As a rule, They are either fools or swindlers. Listen to me and go home. But I want to go on. The hour is late. I want to go on. The night is very dark. I want to go on. The road is dangerous. I want to go on. Remember that boys who insist on having their own way sooner or later come to grief. The same nonsense. Goodbye, Cricket. Good night, Pinocchio, and may heaven preserve you from the assassin. There was a silence for a minute, and the light of the talking cricket disappeared suddenly, just as if someone had snuffed it out. Once again, the road was plunged into darkness. Okay. Yeah, okay. I think I'll read this one and then I'll call it a night. Because look, there's only actually I think there might be 24 chapters, wouldn't it? Something around that anyway. So what chapter am I on? 14. Let's go back and see how many chapters. Oh, 36. 6 sixes, okay, yeah. Or 3 sixes, 3 6 6 6. Yeah. So in chapter 11, yeah, I go up to 14. So chapter 14. Pinocchio, not having listened to the good advice of the talking cricket, falls into the hands of the assassins. Dear, oh dear, when I come to think of it, said the marionette to himself, as he once more set out on his journey, we boys are really very unlucky. Everybody scolds us, everybody gives us advice, everybody warns us. If we were to allow it, everyone would try to be the father and mother to us. Everyone, even the talking cricket. Take me, for example, just because I would not listen to that bothersome cricket. Who knows how many misfortunes may be awaiting me? Assassins, indeed. At least I've never believed in them, nor ever will. To speak sensibly, I think assassins have been invented by fathers and mothers to frighten children who want to run away at night. And then, even if I were to meet them on the road, what matter? I'd just run up to them and say, well, signori, what do you want? Remember that you can't remember that you can't fool me. Sorry, your pardon. Remember that you can't fool with me. Run along and mind your business. That's such a speech. I can almost see those poor fellows running like the wind. But in case they don't run away, I can always run myself. Pinocchio was not given time to argue any longer, for he thought he heard a slight rustle amongst the leaves behind him. He turned to look, and behold, there in the darkness stood 2 big black shadows, wrapped from head to foot in black sacks. 2 figures leapt toward him as softly as if they were ghosts. Here they come, Pinocchio said to himself, and, not knowing where to hide the gold pieces, he stuck all 4 of them under his tongue. He tried to run away, but hardly had he taken a step when he felt his arms grasped and heard 2 horrible deep voices say to him, your money or your life. On account of the gold pieces in his mouth, Pinocchio could not say a word, so he tried with head and hands and body to show as best he could that he was only a poor marionette without a penny in his pocket. Come, come, less nonsense, and out with your money, cried the 2 thieves in threatening voices. Once more, Pinocchio's head and hands said, I haven't a penny. Out with that money, or you're a dead man, said the taller of the 2 assassins. Dead man, repeated the other. And after having killed you, we will kill your father also. Your father also. No, 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 not my father, cried Pinocchio, wild with terror, but as he screamed, the gold pieces tinkled together in his mouth. Ah, you rascal, so that's the game. You have the money hidden under your tongue. Out with it. But Pinocchio was as stubborn as ever. Are you deaf? Wait, young man, we'll get it from you in a twinkling. One of them grabbed the marionette by the nose and the other by the chin, and they pulled him unmercifully from side to side in order to make him open his mouth. Next page. All was of no use. The marionette's lips might have been nailed together. They would not open. In desperation, the smaller of the 2 assassins pulled out a long knife from his pocket and tried to pry Pinocchio's mouth open with it. Quick as a flash, the marionette sank his teeth deep into the assassin's hands, bit it off, and spat it out. Fancy his surprise when he saw that it was not a hand, but a cat's paw. Encouraged by this first victory, he freed himself from the claws of his assailers, and leaping over the bushes along the road, ran swiftly across the fields. His pursuers were after him at once, like 2 dogs chasing a hare. After running 7 miles or so, Pinocchio was well nigh exhausted. Seeing himself lost, he climbed up against the giant pine tree, Pinocchio, and sat there to see what he could see. The assassins tried to climb also, but they slipped and fell. Far from giving up the chase, this only spurred them on. They gathered a bundle of wood, piled it up at the foot of the pine, and set fire to it. So there we have a reference as well for me to, yes, this mass destruction that Earth went through with the destruction via fire of these giant crystalline trees. Pine trees, evergreen trees, pine cones, Douglas pines, the Isle of Man, capital Douglas. Yeah. So anyway, in a twinkling, the tree began to sputter and burn like a candle blown in the wind. Pinocchio blowing in the wind. Pinocchio saw the flames climb higher and higher. Not wishing to end his days as a roasted marionette, he jumped quickly to the ground and off he went. The assassins close to him as before. Dawn was breaking then, without any warning whatsoever. Pinocchio found his path barred by a deep pool full of water, the color of muddy coffee. What was there to do? With a 1, 2, 3, he jumped clear across it. The assassins jumped also, but not having measured their distance well. Splash! They fell right into the middle of the pool. Pinocchio, who heard the splash and felt it too, cried out, laughing, but never stopped in his race. Pleasant bath to you, signori. He thought they must surely be drowned, and turned his head to see, but there were the two somber figures still following him, though their black sacks were drenched and dripping with water. Okay, so the chase is on. Let me read another chapter then, since I thought there was 24, but there is 36. It's just like after one here, so I better get off. Chapter 15. The assassins chase Pinocchio, catch him, and hang him to the branch of a giant oak tree. Just well, as I was talking about the pineapple and this spiraling pattern, we can also notice the same with an acorn. So this, as they call it, the Fibonacci spiraling pattern, is to be found everywhere. And as I say, it is a circular pattern on the move. We live in a dynamic system. And I've mentioned this before about this circular pattern associated with the growth of plants, or the spiraling pattern. This proves a flat Earth, because if the Earth well, in another sense, it's a great piece of evidence towards the flat Earth. The sun will track the flower itself, the growing flower will track the movements of the sun. So even if it's out of our influence, in terms of we cannot see it anymore, and if it turns dark, the plant will still detect it. It will still detect this source energy in the distance, even though we will not, and it will track its movements regarding that. So it will continue on its growing pattern in a circular, ever upwards pattern. So this proves a flat Earth for me. Another nail in the coffin for a globe Earth, because if we were on a globe Earth and everything worked as given, the plant would not know which way to turn when the Earth turned out of the path of the sun. They couldn't trace these energies through the Earth itself. There wouldn't be that strength. So yeah, the plant wouldn't know which way to turn. It would just do sort of instead of a spiraling pattern, a semicircular pattern, and it would swing back around to the east to when the sun came back into influence the next day. So yeah, just because we can't see the sun, that doesn't mean its influence isn't there. And that's more true than what you know as well, by the way, because associated with the sun are all of the luminaries. Again, all the luminaries go back to one source. So anyway, yeah, let me finish this, and yeah. As he ran, the marionette felt more and more certain that he would have to give himself up into the hands of his pursuers. Suddenly he saw a little cottage gleaming white as snow among the trees in the forest. If I have enough breath left with which to reach that little house, I may be saved, he said to himself. Not waiting another moment, he darted swiftly through the woods, the assassins still after him. There we have the assassins after his ass. Pinocchio, you better get your ass in gear. Ass. I've talked about body parts being presented to us for very specific reasons as well, in such a public way. And well, again, getting to the very heart of all of this is the role that our being contained within our body plays and indeed is capable of. That Anus is an anagram of a sun, is not incidental. And as I say, I guess the epicenter of, when we're talking about the L-O-H, I am, the epicenter of the L is in the genitals, the groin area, the reproduction area. The epicenter of the H is the heart, right? This is the bridge between the material and the immaterial. And then I guess you can say the pineal gland is the center of the immaterial, that crystalline gland, you know, or that's what they say about fluoride in the water, that it's meant to calcify your pineal. But that's what I think needs to happen. I think like any good reflection, they can't be all soft and squidgy or reflective material. It needs to be solid and crystalline. And I think that this is a pineal, pine needle, pine eye, you know, so pineal, I mentioned before, spine, pineal, penis. It's all connected, as above, so below. So by amalgamating all of those, this is what I'm talking about, the HOL, by amalgamating all aspects into this heart center, which is what we know as humans. This is what we have to do, to bring the top and the bottom together, to have a focus at the center, the heart center. And well, yeah, we do this. This is practical, so everything is not just symbolic of something that's outside of our reach. This is all practical and stuff that we can do in terms of our own practices, and what we put into our body, what we bring forward from our body in terms of vibrations or whatever. All of this plays a very central part in this whole story. And again, this story is very intimate itself. It's your story. So if you don't understand anything, you can let it go, because you haven't seen yet how it all applies to you. I think when you do this, how many times we need to be told Pinocchio is the father, the mother, the children. Alice is all of us. Alice in Wonderland, all of us in Wonderland. Yeah. So anyway. If I have enough breath left with which to reach that little house, I may be saved, he said to himself. Not waiting another moment, he darted swiftly through the woods, the assassins still after him. After a hard race of almost an hour, tired and out of breath, Pinocchio finally reached the door of the cottage and knocked. No one answered. He knocked again. He knocked again, harder than before, for behind him he heard the steps and the labored breathing of his persecutors. The same silence followed. As knocking was of no use, Pinocchio, in despair, began to kick and bang against the door, as if he wanted to break it. At the noise, a window opened, and a lovely maiden looked out. She had azure hair and a face white as wax. Her eyes were closed, and her hands crossed on her breast. With a voice so weak that it hardly could be heard, she whispered, "No one lives in this house. Everybody is dead." "Won't you at least open the door for me?" cried Pinocchio in a beseeching voice. "I am also dead." "Dead? What are you doing at the window, then?" "I am waiting for the coffin to take me away." After these words, the little girl disappeared, and the window closed without a sound. "Oh, lovely maiden with azure hair," cried Pinocchio, "open, I beg of you. Take pity on a poor boy who is being chased by two ass. He did not finish, for two powerful hands grasped him by the neck, and the same two horrible voices growled threateningly. "Now we have you." Marionette, seeing death dancing before him, trembled so hard that the joints of his legs rattled and the coins tinkled under his tongue. "Well," the assassins asked, "will you open your mouth now or not?" "Ah, you do not answer very well this time. You shall open it." Taking out two long, sharp knives, they struck two heavy blows on the marionette's back. Happily for him, Pinocchio was made of very hard wood, and the knives broke into 1,000 pieces. The assassins looked at each other in dismay, holding the handles of the knives in their hands. "Understand," said one of them to the other. "There is nothing left to do now but to hang him." "To hang him," repeated the other. They tied, not a question form. "To hang him," repeated the other. They tied Pinocchio's hands behind his shoulders and slipped the noose around his neck, throwing the rope over the high limb of the giant oak tree. Trees have limbs, don't they? Humans have limbs as well. Spines, trees have spines, humans have spines. Go and try to figure out yourself how many more body parts can be associated with tree parts, and you'll be amazed. All very significant indeed. they pulled, there's a band on going around called We Are Trees. Have a listen to some of the stuff that they put out with New Ears in a new light, which reminds me again to have a much closer look at the ear. I think I know what I'm seeing anyway, and it's amazing. So anyway, they pulled till the poor marionette hung far up in space. Satisfied with their work, they sat on the grass waiting for Pinocchio to give his last gasp. But after 3 hours, the marionette's eyes were still open, his mouth still shut, and his legs kicked harder than ever. Tired of waiting, the assassins called to him mockingly. Goodbye till tomorrow. When we return in the morning, we hope you'll be polite enough to let us find you dead and gone, and with your mouth wide open. With these words they went. A few minutes went by, and then a wild wind started to blow, and it shrieked and moaned. The poor little sufferer was blown to and fro like the hammer of a bell. The rocking made him seasick, and the noose, becoming tighter and tighter, choked him. Little by little, a film covered his eyes. Death was creeping nearer and nearer, and the marionette still hoped for some good soul to come to his rescue, but no one appeared. As he was about to die, he thought of his poor old father, and hardly conscious of what he was saying, murmured to himself, "Oh, father, dear father, if you were only here." These were his last words. He closed his eyes, opened his mouth, stretched out his legs, and hung there as if he were dead. Poor old Pinocchio hung out like it's dirty old sock to dry. Yeah, very interesting. So that's chapter 15. So chapter 16 next out of 36. There are 20 chapters to go. Maybe 2 or 3 more hangouts. We'll sort that out. Yeah, I don't have much to say really. Lots to sort of mull over. And as I say, this is how I generally do this. My reading hasn't been the best. Eyesight isn't the best as well. So it's a bit sort of taxing to read. So most of your sort of focus and concentration is going on actually trying to get the words out coherently. And you sort of understanding becomes secondary. You're just familiarizing yourself with the story again. But yeah, definitely lots of meat here to cling to, and we can see a similar story being told, very, very sort of reminiscent of many trials and tribulations within the works of the Bible. And yeah, it's a summation. I think that's what children's stories are, and their fundamentals are summations of great lessons and great clues, if you will. Clues, the same word that keeps coming up, you know, as to a greater significance in all of this in terms of our relationship to all. Yeah. So that's pretty much all I have to say about that. Not much achieved tonight for some, probably nobody. People go, why the fuck did I tune into that? But for me, myself, this is why I do it. That's all I have to say about that. And it's by voicing stuff that I can certainly make some progress. And if I feel that maybe 2 or 3 hours might have been a waste of time, well, there might be one moment in there, like seeing that holiday realizing in the 2015 Economist cover, the word holiday itself, and just Holiday. Yeah, that's pretty special in one sense. Lots of supporting clues for me that I need to sort of continue on the way I'm going and see where it sort of leads me and takes me. So I think on that note, I will say goodnight, and let me just bring up my usual. I might have to change sort of songs again. Mix things up small. Well, I even do it too without the songs altogether. But I enjoy some of them myself. But I'll sing this anyway. Yeah, I won't go to chat if you don't mind. I hope everyone maybe got a thing or two from what I've been saying anyway. And if you didn't, well, I can't do anything about that. Tune in the next time when we continue the story of Pinocchio, Pinocchio, and yeah, we just mentioned there we have the mention of the fire, the pine trees. All of this is the greater story. You know, we have many different layers that go on within these works passed down to us. So we're ultimately trying to get to the bottom layer. We know that everything associated with what we call life. Life again is if L. So we can understand life being an anagram of if L, as in the Eiffel Tower, Eiffel Tower, within the context what I was saying about the H, the O, and the L, and what they represent as being the three different aspects to our being, our greater being. And yeah, so we can understand why if L as an anagram for life makes sense within that context. L being the material aspect to everything. And this is what Pinocchio is making his way through pretty admirably, I should think, at this point. The trials and tribulations of if L. So, yeah, on that note, I'll say good night, and I should be on next few nights or something. There's no sort of schedule. And I could talk about loads of things, and I generally end up talking about nothing or nothing too much anyway, or just over a lot of old stuff. But who am I talking to at this stage anyway? You know, as far as I see it, it's pretty much me and Randy. So I hope everything went smoothly enough in chat, and yeah, until the next time, let me just put my on camera there, and I'll leave you with the usual. What does that say to you, by the way? I know the other things say to me, right? That at the back. This at the back, then the H. See the H? Yeah. But I know what the star and the book say. What does this particularly say to you here? You know, it's a domino. He's talking about our dominion and all that, but we have the 6 and the 1. In terms of a die, this is a die if you fold it around, you know, if you sort of give it an extra dimension and you block up, you fill in the sides. So if there are the numbers mentioned, what's left out? We have 2, 3, 4, and 5. But yeah, I'm looking for some sort of significance in that, but not too deeply. If something occurs, it occurs, that sort of thing. I don't push anything. I don't force anything into a box that has to fit in there. I'll just recognize how it could, in a certain light, fit into that, what do you call it? And run with that. So anyway, yeah. So thanks again, and until next time. Oh, the money that I have, I've spent it in the company. And all the harm that I have done, as it was to remember me. For all I've done, for want of words to memory now I can't recall. Oh, come to me, the parting glass of night, and joy to be with you all. If I had money enough to spend and leisure time to sit a while, there is a fair maid in town that solely has my heart to guile. Her rosy cheeks, her ruby lips, I own she has my heart control. So come to me, the heart and ask her night, and joy to be with you all. Oh, the converse there I had, they're sorry for my things and all the sweetness there I had, I would wish me one more day to stay. and I'll softly call. Good night, and joy be with you all. Good night, friends. Till next time. I love you, Steve. Go well.